they stay the same. Thinking about politics and thinking about Hillary and thinking about the history of Arkansas politics. There's a guy who's thought to be a kingmaker in Arkansas politics and has been for many, many years. One of the 2 or 3 people who could walk in on Governor Clinton's office unannounced back in the day. And he gave a speech about a month ago. It wound up on YouTube. And he revealed a lot of things that I don't think at the time he realized what he was doing. Anyway, my guest, Linda Ives, whose son was one of the boys in the tracks killed in Saline County, she comes on and we'll talk about it. 2 o'clock.
Washburn, live and local on News Radio 1029, KARN FM, Sheridan, Little Rock, a Cumulus station.
CBS News, I'm Deborah Rodriguez. New developments in the battle against the Zika virus. In the U.S., reporter Sabrina Cupid.
The CDC here in Atlanta is reporting the first case of Zika spread through sex by a man with no symptoms. Now, in previous cases of sexual transmission, the virus was spread by someone who at some point had symptoms.
At the same time, there's a new order from the FDA. The administration's Dr. Peter Marks.
We're recommending testing of donated blood throughout the United States and its territories.
And Nicaragua has just confirmed its first case of a child born with microcephaly linked to the Zika virus. Donald Trump may get some guidance from his Hispanic advisors today on a plan for dealing with illegal immigrants. CBS News senior political editor Steve Chigara says those plans have been changing.
We knew in the primaries that it was build a wall and deport illegal immigrants. Then he started talking in the last week or so about perhaps softening the deportation part of this.
Hope running out in Amatrice, Italy, where an earthquake has left the entire town in ruins and killed at least 278 people. CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti.
Search and rescue teams say that confidence takes a hit with every passing hour. So far today, from what we understand, not a single person has been pulled alive from the rubble. 4,000 crews are actively searching that rubble.
Food lovers and chefs in Italy are asking restaurants to help by serving the town's namesake pasta, alla Amatriciana, and donating the proceeds to Amatrice. It's made from tomato sauce simmered with pork jowl, topped with pecorino cheese. A judge in France overturns a ban on burkinis at the beach. He's cleared the way for Muslim women to wear full-body bathing suits, which had been declared off-limits in towns along the Riviera. Marwan Mohammed with the Collective Against Islamophobia in France.
This impact is huge politically because it sends a clear message to the political elite that you cannot stigmatize part of the population just because of their religion, and it's not acceptable to restrict fundamental freedoms in a context of Islamophobia today in France.
Speaking to central bankers in Jackson Hole, Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen seems to be leaving the door open for an interest rate hike. CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger.
The economy is growing. It's not growing by a firecracker standard, but it's growing enough to help the labor market heal. Inflation remains pretty low. She also noted that if the economy continues to improve, which the Fed expects it will, the central bank will gradually increase interest rates.
The Dow down 87 right now. This is National Dog Day, and a new best friend doesn't come cheap. CBS's Brooke Silva Braga.
Dogs are expensive. The bigger the dog, the more they cost. $875 a year, the ASPCA found for big dogs. And in the first year, the costs are even greater for big dogs, over $1,400 in that first year because of vaccinations, spaying, or neutering the dog.
This is CBS News.
I'm Robin Caesar with the latest from News Radio 1029 KARN. A student at the University of Central Arkansas has been arrested after another student accused him of a rape on campus. According to an incident report released by the UCA Police Department, the alleged attack was reported to the agency on August 8th. The suspect in the case is identified as 23-year-old Emmanuel O'Toole. He was picked up by the UCA PD on August 9th and charged with rape, forcible fondling, and second-degree sexual assault. His bond was set at $20,000. The Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department has confirmed the date that the Broadway Bridge will shut down, September 28th. The 93-year-old bridge that connects Little Rock with North Little Rock will be torn down and rebuilt. It's estimated the project will take 6 months. Danny Stracely with the Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department said earlier on First News there will be orange detour signs to direct drivers to the Main Street Bridge.
the city of Little Rock and the city of North Little Rock, their traffic departments have been working on the timing of their lights. Those two systems are actually hooked up together and talk to each other. And I believe the city of North Little Rock has a traffic camera command center where they're able to view all their intersections through a operations center to help manipulate the traffic signals if a congested area develops.
The Metropolitan Housing Alliance Commission is looking to buy the 10-acre plot of land apartments commonly known as Sin City, developing the land into lots for private development. KATV reports the Southwest Little Rock complex was originally built back in the 1960s, but later fell into disrepair and ended up being vacated by 1995 and demolished in 2012. Now the Housing Alliance will convert the land into 41 lots to be sold to private developers to build new, affordable single-family homes. The Alliance hopes to put lots out for bid within the next 30 days. Next news in 30 minutes. I'm Robin Caesar, News Radio, 1029 KARN.
Doc Washburn on News Radio 1029 KARN.
Gotta keep them separated.
Well, that's what I was thinking about doing. I just want to say it's an honor to have Linda Ives in with me today. Linda is the mother of Kevin Ives, one of the two boys in the tracks in Saline County who was murdered August 23rd, 1987. So that would have been 29 years ago this past Tuesday. And one of the things that I did Tuesday was to read the complaint. That she filed in federal court. It's a Freedom of Information complaint, and it's against the United States of America acting by and through its agencies, the CIA, the DIA, which is the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the U.S. Department of State, and the state of Arkansas acting by and through its agencies, Arkansas State Police, Bryant Police Department, and Saline County Sheriff's Office. And if you've read the book by Mara Leverett, Boys on the Tracks, you probably know why at long last this Freedom of Information complaint has been filed, because just in that one book, I mean, not to mention the obstruction of justice video, not to mention the different MENA videos that are out there, but just in that one book, there are volumes of evidence about different state and federal investigations into the murder of Linda's son and his friend Don Henry, not to mention the murders of other people in the subsequent months who apparently knew too much. And there are just mountains of evidence of investigations being ordered, shut down by higher-ups. So if you've read the book, Boys on the Tracks, then you know why, at long last, there is this Freedom of Information Act complaint to all of these federal agencies and all of these state agencies. There's a history here, and ever since my attorney friend R. David Lewis first came on this show and mentioned the Boys on the Tracks situation, I've had people contacting me off the air, off the record, through Facebook. Heck, the other day I had people call me on the air saying, Doc, please be careful, watch your back, watch your back. And one of the things that I have said is that, because they always say they're folks in law enforcement around here still in Central Arkansas don't want anybody talking about this. And one of the things I said the other day was, well, it's too late. It's too late, because now it's filed in federal court. It's in God's hands. It's in the court's hands. And if anybody don't want anybody talking about it, I'm the least of your worries at this point. Ms. Linda, I want to apologize for filibustering. I'm actually not a politician. I'm not running for office. I know you're probably wondering, well, Doc, you invited me on the show. Do I get in a word edgewise?
Oh, no, not at all. Thanks, Doc. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it a lot. The thing with the complaint for me is I want to know what they know.
Yeah.
It's been 30 years. These investigations were done at taxpayer expense, and I want to know what they know that they refuse to do with anything with.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Turn over the records. You're not going to do anything with them. Turn them over.
Exactly. And one of the points that your attorney makes in this Freedom of Information complaint is that by law, since this is a very public thing, because, look, books have been written, documentaries have been done, TV shows, et cetera, so a lot of people know about this. So by law, since this is a very public thing, A, and B, there hasn't been an investigation into this case in many years, they really don't have a legal leg to stand on to say, oh, wait, we can't, because it's customary, and I'm not just talking about your situation here, but it's customary anytime law enforcement is investigating a crime for them to say to the press even, I'm sorry, we got an active investigation going on, and we can't really comment on that right now. You'll just have to wait, until the trial, or whatever, until the conclusion of the investigation.
Right. They even have a confession, signed confession. They've refused to even interview the person that confessed and the persons that she implicated. It's been nearly 2 years while I've waited for them to act on it, and they've refused to even interview them. So, fine, turn it over, give it to me.
Exactly.
I want to know who and I want to know why, and I think me and the other families involved deserve answers.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating to me. Once you came on the show with me and explained what happened when you and your husband and a retired homicide detective who was longtime law enforcement, and I've met him and spoke to him for hours and I'm very impressed with his professionalism. When the three of you went to talk to Saline County Prosecuting Attorney Ken Cassidy, gosh, I guess year and a half ago, something like that?
Yeah, going on 2 years ago.
Almost 2 years ago. And said, look, here's this confession from 1993 that implicates, Charlene Wilson signed it in the presence of 3 law enforcement officers, 1 Saline County deputy and 2 LRPD officers. And she implicates herself, implicates Dan Harmon, several other people. And from your account, from the retired homicide detective's account, the response you got was basically sneering, and I'm not going to read that, and you got to go to the sheriff, and of course the sheriff is the nephew of Dan Harmon,
right.
Former prosecuting attorney who went to prison for dealing drugs. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, we get a phone call from said prosecuting attorney of Saline County who basically tried to spin it in a different direction. But one of the things I've said, and forgive me because I don't remember if I said this on the air, don't remember if I said it off the air, was that even if there wasn't, in my opinion now, this is my opinion, even if there wasn't a family connection between the current sheriff of Saline County, who, unlike the prosecuting attorney, has not called my show, and Dan Harmon, who, even in the conflicting theories about what happened to the boys, tends to be a central figure in all the theories, even if there was not very curious behavior by the current prosecuting attorney, who allegedly told your friend, the retired homicide detective, you don't know the first thing about probable cause. Even if both these guys were not connected and with the powers that be and had steels of spine, this thing is so big. People keep on telling me, Doc, you don't understand how big this thing is. This thing's so big, I don't think they would be allowed to investigate it. I mean, Bob Govar was the assistant U.S. attorney many moons ago, back in the early 90s, and he was hot on the trail.
He was. He told me indictments were imminent. He also told Gene Duffy that independently. We weren't even communicating at that time, but we were both told that indictments were imminent. This was back in 1990.
And I read on the show the other day the interoffice memo from 1990, Bob Govar to Chuck Banks. And in case anyone is wondering, yes, that would be the same Chuck Banks who is currently an attorney, has his own law firm in Little Rock. I read on the air, well, it was such a long memo, I couldn't read the whole thing, but they just had one thing after another on Harmon and Richard Garrett. By the way, just a point of reference, I'm looking to my producer. Harmon actually went to prison, but Garrett did not, right?
I haven't gotten that far in the book, but
okay.
I think if I remember correctly, that's what we've said.
Because in the interoffice memo from Bob Govar to Chuck Banks, Harmon's right-hand man, Richard Garrett, is implicated all over the place.
He is.
And I'm not making the allegations. An assistant U.S. attorney was making the allegations in an interoffice memo. This is 1990.
That's correct.
Before email. But I read a bunch of it on the air the other day, and I'm just like, okay, this is crazy. This is crazy. Because less than a year later, Chuck Banks announces, got nothing. No, we're not going to do anything. Nope.
Now, that memo was not one of the two memos that was leaked to the press, was it?
I don't know, but it's on a really fascinating website called idfiles.com. And if the press wanted it somewhere along the way, they could have certainly had it.
Well,
it's all over the place. It's all over ID files. It's all over a bazillion other files, actually.
Yeah.
People that have shared it and other sites and magazines.
Yeah.
Newspapers.
Absolutely.
It's on my website, my Facebook page. The information is out there. That's what's so frustrating. If my name had appeared in a investigative manner of a murder file, you can bet that I had my butt down there talking to me.
Me too.
And yet they're not even interested in talking to them, say they can't talk to them, refuse to talk to them.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about on the air was that the sheriff, Rodney Wright, nephew of Dan Harmon, told you that he cannot interview Charlene Wilson as a hostile witness unless he has a warrant from the prosecuting attorney. Now, one of the things I want to mention here, so maybe somebody can call him in case he wants to be listening. Coming out of the break, it's fascinating to me that someone can be such a wealthy, powerful person in a community, and half the people have never heard of him, but the other half have. So we're about to make Lib Carlisle famous, and then everybody will have heard of him.
Lib Carlisle is a central figure in Saline County and
has been for
most
many
everything,
years.
And nearly every controversial subject there is for many years, but he's very low profile and under the radar.
However, I'm going to stipulate, if it please the court, that if Mr. Carlisle had been interested in remaining low profile and under the radar, it might have been a wise idea for him to have resisted the temptation about a month ago to give a 1-hour talk to the Saline County History and Heritage Society that was videotaped and put on YouTube. And by the way, let me give credit where it's due. I want to say thank you so much to Shelley Poole of MySalineToday.com. She's got a YouTube channel, and bless her heart, she videotaped. I don't even know if Lib knew he was being videotaped, because at one point he said, "Is the press here? I don't want y'all to mention this part." So bless her heart, Shelley Poole, MySalineToday.com, she did the legwork, because I didn't know. If it weren't for Ms. Poole, God bless her, and MySalineToday.com putting this thing up on YouTube, a lot of the, well, I don't know if we want to call it incriminating, but certainly interesting and peculiar things that Lib Carlisle said would have been lost to the ages.
That's correct.
This is one of the wonderful things these days, not just about the internet, not just about YouTube, but YouTube's nothing unless people contribute stuff to it. And people do on a regular basis. And it's not just music videos. And it's not just funny stuff. Some of it is historical. And why else would they call it the Saline County History and Heritage Society? You got the history right there in the title. So Shelley Poole, a big shout out and thank you so much for capturing some amazing things that Lib said. I mean, he's got a whole room full of people laughing about voter fraud back in the day.
It's incredible.
Who knew?
It's incredible.
Who knew? And he has some very interesting things to say about a deceased former sheriff. Oh, it's kids, strap yourself in. Grab hold of the armrest. Might want to, if you imbibe, might even want to get an adult beverage. If not, ginger ale works for me. Because we have only just begun today. Yeah, just call me Karen Carpenter, baby. We only just begun. All right, we're returning momentarily with Linda Ives, and as we say in the business, and by the business, of course, I'm referring to the industry, will be this right after back. The Doc Washburn Show continues. You got it. News Radio 102.9 KARN. Hey, y'all, the rain is a-coming. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but when it does, remember, your roof protects you and yours from the elements. So when it comes to first-rate commercial and residential roofing, you want Kuhn & Son Roofing and Restoration. Kuhn & Son Roofing specializes in flat roof and shingle installation, as well as flat roof and shingle repairs with a warranty. Kuhn & Son has 45 years of experience. At Kuhn & Son Roofing, they train all their staff members to make sure that they deliver excellent service down to the last detail. Now, if you have a flat roof on your commercial building, call Kuhn & Son Roofing for a free inspection. Everything they do is under warranty. When it comes to flat roof repair or installation, residential or commercial, call Kuhn & Son Roofing at 902-9971. When you want to be positive, the work is perfect, the leaks are fixed, the shingles are replaced, the new roof is installed just right, just go to KuhnandSonRoofing.com. That's Kuhn with a K, KuhnandSonRoofing.com for all your commercial and residential roofing.
Doc Washburn for the ride home.
Doc, I didn't know you was back in town.
Live and local on News Radio 102.9 KARN.
If you Labor Day. It's the last big hurrah of the summer. So tell me what it means to you.
My most memorable Labor Day was the backyard barbecue and fire of 2004. Too much lighter fluid, too close to the house. My wife banned me from barbecuing till she restored my privileges in 2008. And I'm proud to say I'm still married to the same woman today.
Make your Labor Day one to remember. Enter the Ultimate Labor Day Party giveaway and you could win $4,000. So it'll be a day you'll never forget.
Enter to win at this station's website.
The core.
Everything good for your mind, body, and soul.
And this is somewhat unorthodox. Well, you're probably thinking, Doc, we've been listening to you for a while, brother. Everything you do is unorthodox. And you would be correct. But this is somewhat unorthodox. Our guest today is Linda Ives, in case you're just tuning in, mother of one of the boys in the tracks, Kevin Ives, who, with his friend Don Henry, was murdered in Saline County. Big national story 29 years ago. Linda, what I want to do first, just to remind people about Hillary Clinton, because Lib Carlisle talks about Bill and Hillary at one point.
Well, one of the things about Lib Carlisle and Bill and Hillary Clinton is that everybody will tell you that he is one of only one or two people who can walk into the governor's mansion unannounced and see the governor.
Well, back then, probably not the current governor, but
no,
yeah,
back then, during
but definitely
the
back
days.
then, yeah.
When Bill was elected president, Hillary, when she got to Washington, decided that all of those people who were writing unfavorable things toward Bill had to be dealt with and smeared and discredited. And there were a lot of national journalists writing unfavorable things about him, the bimbo eruption and things. There were a number of journalists, national journalists, that were on a list of hers to be dealt with, and in amongst all of them was me. They put together a list, her and Mark Fabiani, that was called the Mainstream Commerce Conspiracy Report.
And Mark Fabiani, of course, was a White House counsel. He was a lawyer working for them.
Yes, absolutely. And then they called in favorable journalists and assigned them different people to take care of, to discredit.
To smear, basically.
To smear,
yeah.
absolutely.
And one of them was going to do it for the New York Times Sunday magazine.
Absolutely. And the article that they wanted to fold me into was called The Clinton Haters in the New York Sunday magazine.
New York Times Sunday magazine,
yes, New York Times Sunday magazine. And when he called and told me he wanted to interview me and told me why, I was just
You're like, what do I
baffled.
have to do with the Bill Clinton White House?
Yeah.
What are you even talking about?
I was baffled as to why they wanted to include me in that piece. And in fact, I refused to talk to him at first. And he said, well, I'm going to write about you whether you talk to me or not, so you might as well have some input. And so I agreed to talk to him and meet with him. And when we were through, I called Micah Morrison, who was with the Wall Street Journal and had been writing pieces about me, and Dan Harmon, actually. I asked him, I said, what does the White House want with me? And who is Philip Wise? So he ended up calling and interviewing Philip Wise and broke the story.
Philip Wise was the guy who was going to smear you from the New York Times Sunday magazine.
He was the gentleman that I gave the interview to. And he ended up interviewing Philip Wise and found out about what became known as Hillary's hit list.
Yeah.
But it was incredible that they had put together this, I don't know how many hundreds of pages report that became dubbed the hit list, and I was included in it. I certainly wasn't interested in Bill Clinton. I've never claimed that Bill Clinton was down on the tarmac at Mina unloading drugs, and I was interested in whoever it was that killed the boys,
right?
Who were local people,
right?
And my focus had never been Bill Clinton, but apparently even Hillary Clinton decided I was an enemy to be dealt with.
Yeah, for some reason, even though your focus had never been Bill or Hillary, by the mid-'90s when he's running for re-election, part of their focus became you.
Yes, absolutely.
Pardon me.
It's been written about in books. It's been discussed on television. I was one of the Clinton haters. I told Philip Wise during the interview, I said, I don't feel like I belong in this group. And he later wrote that he didn't know it, but when he left my house, he had just become a Clinton hater.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was devastated when the story came out, and his friends in the White House, Mark Fabiani and Chris Lahan, he felt like he had betrayed them by exposing the Mainstream Commerce Conspiracy Report, or the hit list. And so he agreed, after interviewing other people and investigating the case a little bit himself, that, I didn't belong in that story. And he kept me separate and apart in the story.
Excellent, excellent. Well, one of the things I want to do here, if I may, to remind you who we're talking about, Hillary Clinton. Here's Trey Gowdy on with Megyn Kelly on Fox News last night.
Today you had an interesting day taking a look at some documents that the FBI had prior to you getting a look at them. Did you find anything particularly interesting about these documents that Hillary provided the FBI?
Yes, ma'am. Keep in mind, one notebook were the classified emails that she handled so negligently. The other notebook are the witness interviews, the summaries, what we call 302s. My number one takeaway, Megyn, is there's no reason in the world you could not and should not be able to look at the same witness interviews that I had to go to Washington and look at in a classified setting. You and your viewers should be able to read summaries of these witness interviews. The second takeaway is a lot of the FBI's time and attention was spent debunking and refuting these fantastically false statements that Secretary Clinton made at the inception of this email story.
Now, we have two more pieces of audio with South Carolina United States Representative Trey Gowdy talking to Megyn Kelly of Fox last night about Hillary Clinton's fantastic lies, and then we'll go to Lib Carlisle telling the Saline County History and Heritage Society what a wonderful person Hillary was, and butter, literally, I don't think would melt in her mouth. More coming up with Linda Ives.
CBS News Update. The government issues a new order related to the Zika virus. CBS's Steve Dorsey.
The FDA wants all U.S. blood banks to start screening for Zika. It's a move to protect the nation's blood supply from the mosquito-borne virus. The FDA first recommended in February only blood banks in areas with active Zika transmission, like Puerto Rico, should screen blood for the virus. Blood banks already screen for other viruses like HIV, hepatitis, and West Nile.
There's rain in the forecast for Miami Beach, where there are 5 documented cases of Zika transmitted by local mosquitoes. Governor Rick Scott.
We all know we're going to have some weather this weekend, so it's going to be even more incumbent on us to make sure we get rid of the standing water.
Federal health officials are reporting the first case of sexually transmitted Zika from someone with no symptoms. The first Zika pregnancy in the U.S. has just been confirmed in Nevada, and Nicaragua reports its first case of a baby born with microcephaly linked to Zika. CBS News Update. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
I'm Robin Caesar with the latest from News Radio 1029 KARN. A man stabbed his mother and stepfather to death early Friday morning in Springdale. 28-year-old Dustin Price has been arrested in connection with the killings and a third non-fatal stabbing. 47-year-old Teresa Hendershot was pronounced dead at the scene, while 47-year-old James Hendershot was taken to the Northwest Medical Center and pronounced dead. Price's roommate, 52-year-old Daniel Teehan, was stabbed and taken to Northwest Medical Center, where he is listed as stable with non-life-threatening injuries. A Hot Springs man has been sentenced to 20 years in prison after pleading guilty to a drug trafficking charge last year. 30-year-old Cedric Easter pleaded guilty on July 31, 2015, to a single count of conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. Undercover officers bought methamphetamine from Easter on 4 occasions before he was arrested. Arkansas Online reporting police also obtained his phone records, which showed incriminating text messages wherein drug amounts were discussed. An Arkansas Baptist college student murdered 4 years ago now has his name honored by the school. Fox 16's Josh Berry reports it has a new research institute dedicated to prevention of black-on-black violence.
Derek Olivier was shot and killed in Little Rock in 2012. The then freshman at Arkansas Baptist was helping a fellow student change a tire when someone gunned him down. The Louisiana native's parents came up for the school's dedication of the Derek Olivier Research Institute for the Prevention of Black-on-Black Violence.
You can tell someone get a job, but if there's no job in your community, there's economic development. What's going on? What's the stability in the community? Where is the city investing in the community? All those things come into play to impact the crime in the area.
The director, Eric Higgins, is a former assistant chief for Little Rock Police Department. He says he'll be able to use help from students and professors researching the factors that can have an effect on crimes.
Speakers for the event included Governor Asa Hutchinson, Mayor Mark Stodola, and Broadway Joe of Power 92. Next news in 30 minutes. I'm Robin Caesar, News Radio 1029 KARN.
Hi, Jason Stapleton here. Are you interested in political talk without all the rhetoric? You can find it on my podcast, The Jason Stapleton Program. We get 5-star ratings from iTunes because I keep it simple. Straight talk about the issues without the left or right leanings and bloated opinions. The Jason Stapleton Program is about American individualism, liberty-oriented discussions, and the clarity to think for yourself. Go to newlibertytalk.com and listen now. That's newlibertytalk.com.
Everything good for your mind, body, and soul. The Core.
Seems if you find you're always on the go, whether it be because of your job or because you're always shuttling kids everywhere, the old idea that you're stuck with nothing but fast food and unhealthy choices at the convenience store, that's becoming quite a thing of the past. More retailers are offering reasonably priced food that's relatively healthy all the time. In fact, most recently, 7-Eleven teaming up with this Tony Horton, that's the guy that created P90X and stuff, to put better choices on their shelves, like cold-pressed juice and high-fiber salads and high-protein wraps, and they're all relatively reasonably priced, too. And they're joining the ranks of Walmart and Target and Kroger and Safeway stores, all trying to do the same. So much for our, but I'm on the road, I've got to grab a hamburger idea. Not necessarily. You can eat healthy, even on the road, if you know where to look. That's the core.
Well, technology changes could cause you some problems. I'm Giff, and this is Tech Trends. Well, a couple of things. Google is changing its search engine. I mentioned this last week. So if your website for your business is not mobile friendly, you need to get it that way. Because when somebody does a mobile search in Google, and if you're not mobile friendly, you're not going to show up in the search results. So you might want to check that out. Number 2, YouTube. On devices that were manufactured before 2013, so anything more than 2 years old, the YouTube app will no longer work. Also, if you have one of those set-top boxes like I do, I've got an all-in-one that's my streaming device and also my surround sound all together. And there was a warning there the other day that said this app will no longer function after April 20-something. And the sad news is it's not like you could just go out and download a new app. They're just not going to work at all. There you go. It's Tech Trends. Good luck out there.
Data transfer complete.
And Tech Trends brought to you by the National Association of Realtors. Realtor.com is the most accurate home search site. Be sure to work with a Realtor to help you through the process. Realtor.com and Realtors. Together, we make home happen. So you think those photos on Facebook are private? Time to think again. I'm Giff, and this is Tech Trends. Now, keeping your photos private is really important, whether for personal safety or a potential job. Kids, preach on this one at my house all the time. It's not really a good feeling that anyone can see your pictures, especially when you've done all you can to prevent it from happening. So here's the deal. In the Facebook search bar at the top of your page, if you type in photos of and the name of a friend whose photos you want to see, it will pull up a stream of all the photos that they are tagged in, friends or your kids, even if they have the settings so that only they can view the photos they're tagged in. Does that make sense? So, keeping up with your kids, while they may think everything's private, it's not private. You can go searching for red Solo cups like I used to all the time in my kids' pictures. Sorry, kids, had to do it. Parents got to stick together. That's Tech Trends. Good luck out there.
Data transfer complete.
Doc Washburn on News Radio 1029 KARN.
It's an unusual day on the Doc Washburn Show. Linda Ives is my guest. She is the mother of Kevin Ives, who, along with his friend Don Henry, was murdered in the Boys in the Tracks tragedy, the scandal, 29 years ago this week. And we're going to play some audio from a recent talk given by a guy who's been a political kingpin in this state for many years, Lib Carlisle. He recently spoke to the Saline County History and Heritage Society, and it's on YouTube. Again, big shout out, big thanks to Shelley Poole, mysaline.com, for putting it up there. I did get the website right, didn't I? mysaline.com, is that what they call it?
Yes, that's correct.
Because as far as I know, and we've looked, it's the first and only public speech from Lib Carlisle ever, and only happened a month ago. A lot of people in Saline County don't even know who he is, even though he has been, I guess, a hand behind a lot of the things that have gone on there over the years. Anyway, to remind you just how devious and dangerous a person Hillary Clinton is, I have a little bit of audio from Trey Gowdy talking to Megyn Kelly on Fox News about how the so-called FBI investigation against Hillary seems to have been cooked. And we played one of them before the bottom of the hour news, and now we have two more.
And the third takeaway, remember, Director Comey said that he could not indict, did not have a realistic probability of a successful prosecution on the issue of intent. So I looked to see what witnesses were questioned on the issue of intent, including her, and I didn't see that many questions.
Let's go back to number 2.
Issue.
Let's go back to the second point, which is how much time they had to spend debunking what you say were lies or falsehoods that she told. What do you mean by that?
Oh, even something as seemingly innocuous as us referring to Sidney Blumenthal as her advisor. Remember, she got really upset when we used that term. You'll never guess which term the FBI used when they described Sidney Blumenthal and his relationship to her. He was interviewed. I think you would find very interesting what Colin Powell had to say and juxtapose that with what Clinton supporters have said over the last 48 hours.
Okay, again, we can say all we want that Hillary would be further up the polls right now if she'd pay more attention to Bill, if she'd listen to him. But one of the things she definitely learned from Bill is, well, I guess it all depends upon what the meaning of the word is. One more from Trey Gowdy, and then we're going to have the counterpoint with Saline County's own Lib Carlisle.
Go back, the multiple devices, how many phones she had, the very reason she set it up. All of that proved to be fantastically
And I want to ask you this. So she also, of course, claimed that she never sent or received classified information. We now know that that's not true. I know you thought it might be interesting if the American people could see who sent some of the emails that she received with the classified information. What do you mean by that? Why would that be so interesting?
Well, right now, even Congress can't see the identities of them. They are so classified that even a congressman in a skiff with no telephone, no iPad, no notes, cannot even see who the author or the originator of that email string was. That is how classified that information was that she was handling on a non-secure server. Mm-hmm. So Sidney Blumenthal is one author. Of course, you know Cheryl Mills and Numa Abedin and Jake Sullivan, but there are even some originators that even members of Congress cannot see the identity of them because of the nature of the information.
There you go. So, now, that all having been said, about a month ago, Lib Carlisle, big political player in Saline County for many, many years. And we'll tell you how, for about over 50 years, actually, because he was pressed in the service in 1965 by his own admission, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. He gave a talk at the Saline County History and Heritage Society. Thank God Shelley Poole was there to videotape it, and for mysaline.com, I guess, put it up on her YouTube page, or it would be lost forever. We wouldn't have it. And he was talking at one point about how wonderful Bill Clinton was, because Bill Clinton had the vision, he had the foresight to realize that the state of Arkansas was really not much of a player when it came to national politics. And Lib said, you don't just wake up one morning and decide, well, I'm going to run for president. You really have to lay the foundation, lay the groundwork years in advance. And so one of the ways to get there, and Lib Carlisle and Bill Clinton agreed on this, was we had to figure out, or they had to figure out, I certainly wasn't around, it wouldn't have helped, they had to figure out how to make Arkansas more of a player in national politics than it was. So they had the idea of getting political folks from the 13 other states in the South together and talking about how to build a political voting bloc in the Congress. Because we only had the 2 U.S. senators and the 4 U.S. representatives. So compared to big states, didn't have much pull in Congress. So they decided, and this is way before Bill ran for president, they decided we're going to get folks from all these other southern states, 13 other southern states, and bring them into the governor's mansion and wine and dine them. And Lib was kind of joking. He said, yeah, we fed them sardines and bologna and cheese. And they were just scarfing up this stuff. Right, Lib. I'm sure you brought these guys in and fed them sardines and bologna and cheese. Sure. We'll believe anything you say, Lib. That makes perfect sense. So, having set the stage for all of that, what comes up is what Lib says happens when Hillary gets home, and here they've got all these guys she's never met eating sardines and bologna and cheese in the governor's mansion, and she wants to know what in the world is going on. And if there's one thing that I think everybody will agree about Lib Carlisle is he can spin a yarn. He can tell a story. And so that story is up next as we continue with my friend Linda Ives as we get into the boys on the tracks situation and talk about the Freedom of Information complaint against a bunch of state and federal agencies today. On the Doc Washburn Show, you got it, News Radio 1029 KARN. Not everyone.
We've been in the jewelry and diamond business since
News Radio 1029 KARN.
About to get real up in here. My guest is Linda Ives, whose son Kevin Ives was murdered in the Boys in the Tracks tragedy 29 years ago this week. About a month ago, a fellow who is probably the most powerful person in Saline County that a lot of people have never heard of, Lib Carlisle, gave a talk kind of reminiscing to the Saline County History and Heritage Society. And Shelley Poole, God bless her, mysaline.com, put it on her YouTube channel. And so what we're about to hear is Lib's recollection of when he and Governor Clinton got together representatives from 13 other southern states at the governor's mansion, fed them sardines, bologna, and cheese, and tried to talk about basically combining their efforts in Congress to have a voting bloc to provide better representations for the southern states. So just to explain that. And I apologize, the audio is not very good on this, but I transcribed everything, so I'll tell you in case you have a hard time understanding what he says here. Here's Lib Carlisle.
But anyway, Hillary come home.
But anyway, Hillary come home. Now, I guess that's his way of saying, but anyway, Hillary came home. But anyway, should I lay off on the grammar? Linda, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
just let him roll.
Give him a break on the grammar. All right. But anyway, Hillary come home.
She come in and she spoke to us. I'll never forget this. Press here. Leave this out.
She come in. She spoke to us. I'll never forget. Is the press here? Leave this out. Well, Lib, the press was there in the form of Shelley Poole, mysaline.com, but she didn't leave it out, and I'm thankful she didn't leave it out. I don't really qualify being the press. I'm washed-up DJ. It's all I can do to get to the studio every day and pretend like I'm a talk show host. But, Lib, the press is going to be here. Don't worry. I think it's almost like reverse psychology. I think he wanted the press to be here. Anyway, so Hillary come home, and she spoke to us. And I want the press to leave this out.
We walked in, and Hillary wanted to see Bill and I.
We walked in, and Hillary wanted to see Bill and I. Now, if you know anything about grammar, I'm sorry, Linda, I'm sorry. That's like fingernails on the blackboard. Hillary wanted to see Bill and me, not Bill and I. I'm sorry. I'll try not to do that again. I apologize. So again, remember, Governor Bill Clinton and Lib Carlisle have congressional representatives from 13 other southern states, and they're trying to kind of put something together here, and they're feeding them sardines, bologna, and cheese, and those boys, they are going after these sardines, bologna, and cheese. They're loving it, and Hillary walks in, and here's what she says.
She said, "What are y'all doing?"
She said, "What are y'all doing?" Because Hillary always said y'all.
We're having a get-together with these 13 gentlemen that are from another state.
Okay, can you not hear it?
No.
You can't hear it?
No.
Or you're probably not plugged in. Here. I don't know why they'd unplug the headphones. Okay, let me play that one again for Linda.
She said, what are y'all doing?
She said, what are y'all doing? And here's the answer.
We're having a get-together with these 13 gentlemen that are from another state.
We're having a get-together with these 13 gentlemen that are from other states. Okay.
Well, why are you doing it? Because we're going to be elected president one of these days, and we need him on our side.
Well, why are y'all doing it? Because we're going to be elected president one of these days, and we need them on our side. We're. Now, see, Linda Ives, I always heard that when Bill was running the first time, he was talking about how sharp Hillary was, and he was like, you get 2 for the price of 1. It's not just me, you get Hillary. But what he didn't mention was apparently you get 3. You get Bill, you get Hillary, and you get good old Lib Carlisle. We're running for president. Who knew? Because I thought it was Clinton Gore. Maybe the only reason it wasn't Clinton Carlisle is because you can't, have a vice presidential nominee from the same state. I don't know. But in Lib's mind, we're running for president. We're going to be elected. Now, I told you Lib Carlisle can spin a yarn because you're not going to believe what he's got Hillary saying in response.
She said, you boys, y'all know this isn't our house. This belongs to the people of Arkansas.
She said, you boys don't know. This isn't our house. This belongs to the people of Arkansas. In other words, I don't care if you're running for president. This is the people's house. I try to say this politely, diplomatically. Linda Ives, do you believe for 1 minute that Hillary Clinton, whose sole goal in life was to get Bill elected so she could get herself elected, would have ever said something like that when Lib Carlisle was trying to help her husband lay the foundation to run for president? You boys, this isn't our house. This is the people of Arkansas. I said, isn't that one of the most fantastically ridiculous things you've ever heard? Almost as ridiculous as I used a private email server because I didn't want to carry more than one mobile device. Can you believe that not only did Lib Carlisle say that, but that the people in the room didn't bust a gut laughing at him for how ridiculous something like that is? I'm not overstating the case, am I?
No, I don't think so at all.
I mean, as a lifelong Arkansan said to me on a private message on Facebook yesterday, I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. I mean, do I look like I just fell off the back of a turnip truck? Do not answer that. And one more.
She was really right. 100% right.
She was really right, 100% right. But he goes on to say, but it worked, and, we finally got him elected, et cetera, et cetera. But we're supposed to believe, if we're to believe Lib Carlisle, that Hillary had a problem with them using the governor's mansion to try to persuade people from other southern states with sardines that they ought to get behind Bill Clinton and present a united front to the rest of the country and the Yankees and everything, because he was going to run for president eventually. And her concern was, doggone it, guys, this is the people's house. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, they were eating bologna.
Yeah, but Lib wants us to eat this bologna. I ain't having it. Yes. I'm not. It's amazing. It is amazing to me. And I will never be able to express adequately my appreciation to Shelley Poole for capturing all this. Now, Lib Carlisle goes into, and we're going to tie all this in with the boys in the tracks and the thwarted investigations and everything, but we got to lay the foundation. Lib Carlisle begins, for some reason, the first 9 or 10 minutes of the video, the audio is pretty clear, and then the lights come on and the air conditioning comes on, and then it's a mess. He starts off telling about how he got into politics way back in 1965, over 50 years ago, and here's how it begins.
Well, I got started in this in 1965. One Saturday morning, a man came over from the courthouse and told me that Mr. Charlie wanted to see me upstairs in the courtroom. Well, I didn't know what I'd done or what I was going to do, but if Mr. Charlie called, I went. And so did most everybody else in the county in those days. I'm talking about Charlie Smithers.
Yeah.
He started in politics in 1930. He was elected 2 terms as assessor, and then he was elected 8 terms as county judge, and then he was a former legislator, which he didn't like that. He told me, he said, I didn't like that. Well, he couldn't tell everyone, he just wasn't what he wanted to do. And then he was county chairman for 12 years. So he served a long span in politics and was a leader of this community. And a lot of things he did in those days, we still have today. We have Benton State Hospital or the Benton Service Center. He was very instrumental in it being here. And then we have Saline Memorial Hospital. Again, he was very instrumental in getting the funds and getting that built. And then Interstate 30, right away, he helped do all of that. So there's a lot of things today still going on that he did and worked with. And he helped lots of people, and he loved it.
So Lib is really going back here in the history. Apparently, Lib eventually became the kingmaker in Saline County politics, but there's always somebody before the current guy. And the earlier guy was Charlie Smithers. And now, you're probably not old enough to have remembered Charlie Smithers, right?
No, absolutely not. I didn't have a clue who he was. The only thing I knew was Smithers Drive in Benton.
Yeah, but he helped get the funding for that hospital. I wonder if he was still around when the hospital scandal, early 80s. Well, we don't know if Charlie was around, but Lib was around. Speaking of which, well, I don't know. Maybe we can get to the hospital scandal here directly, to use a natural state term. Directly, we'll get to it. And there was a grand jury, and let me see, what was the similarity between that grand jury and the Boys in the Tracks grand jury? Oh, Dan Harmon was in charge. There was another similarity. They came up with nada, zero, zilch, not a doggone thing. We're going to tie some things together. It's 3 o'clock.
Doc Washburn, live and local on News Radio 1029 KARN-FM Sheridan Little Rock, a Cumulus station. 8 o'clock on News Radio 1029 KARN.
All right, during the top of the hour news break, our guest, Linda Ives, Boys in the Tracks, Linda Ives, corrected me. I stand corrected, and I want to, if it pleases the court, I would like to revise and amend my remarks. When I said that nothing came out of the Saline County Memorial Hospital grand jury of, what was it, about 84, 85, somewhere around in there?
Yes, 84.
Okay. Well, I said nothing came out of it. Linda Ives corrected me. There were how many charges against E.F. Black?
I think he had 85 counts against him, and there were numerous others against 4 or 5 others. Actually received nothing sentences, though. The videotapes that the jury was promised they would see were never produced.
See, that's the thing I was thinking about.
Yes.
The tapes of the alleged wild parties at the lake.
Yes.
Which would have implicated all kinds of people, all kinds of things.
That was in articles about in the Courier talked about the videotapes had been used to blackmail several persons already, even back during that time. They were videotaping them using drugs and compromising situations with girls that they had at the lake house, and then using them to blackmail and to force them to let them use funds from the hospital. They spent thousands and thousands of dollars of hospital money on parties, entertaining officials and also officials from Rivendell. They were trying to get Rivendell Hospital located here or there in Saline County. And they were wining and dining, if you will, the officials from there at the lake house that they had installed expensive equipment in. And
expensive video camera surveillance stuff that a lot of these people probably would not have done some of the things they allegedly did if they had any idea they were in videotapes. But, so...
They actually used it against the auditor of the hospital so that he had to allow them to make expenditures of hospital money.
And the videotapes were all supposed to be presented to the Saline County Memorial Hospital scandal grand jury, but Dan Harmon somehow didn't quite get around to that. Wonder if he's still got copies.
Oh, I'm absolutely certain he's still got copies. I think that's his insurance and part of his protection, at least.
Because a lot of other people might have died suspicious deaths in the late 80s, early 90s, but Dan's still alive and kicking. All right, so anyway, Lib Carlisle, I don't know where he gave this talk. Was it at the library, you think?
I'm not sure where it took place, to tell you the truth.
But we know it was Saline County History and Heritage Society. Talking about how he got into politics, Mr. Charlie Smithers in 1965 said, son, you're going to do this. And that's kind of how it happened, and here's more.
But that Saturday morning, he sent for me, and I go to the courthouse, and he said, come to the courtroom. Well, I didn't know what. So I got upstairs, and I mean, it was full, and that courtroom was full. That was back when JPs was elected by precinct, and we had a jillion JPs, and their total function in life back then was they had to vote on the county budget and the married people. That's it. That's about all they did, because there was so many of them. There was a lot of them. But anyway, when I walked in the room, he said, I want to introduce to you your new secretary of the Central Committee, Lib Carlisle. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. I didn't know what a Central Committee was. And I knew I couldn't be a secretary because I can't write or spell. And I still can't.
So that's how back in the day, apparently, Charlie Smithers, kingpin of all political things going on in Saline County, decided to lay the foundation because he knew eventually there'd need to be a new kingpin. He wasn't going to be around forever. And that's how, by his own admission, Lib Carlisle got into politics. Now, this is the same Lib Carlisle, remember, who a few minutes ago was talking about Hillary Clinton being upset that Bill Clinton used the Arkansas governor's mansion to further the possibility of him running for president. So, we'll take it with a grain of salt. But this is what we have to work with, okay? This is what we have to work with. Here's more.
But anyway, I went over and sat down, and I didn't know what he got me into. But I just sat there real quiet. As many of you know me, that's kind of hard to see me quiet.
Amen, brother.
But anyway, that particular day, I was real quiet. And after the meeting was all over with, and I said, Mr. Smith, what do you got me into? I don't even know what is it? He said, oh, don't worry about it. I said, well, I can't, I'm not a secretary. I can't do that. You want to do that, but I want you to take care of the money. Well, I can handle that. So,
we know, bro, we know.
That's all the instructions I got. But then we've always had a good county clerk office. We've always had good elections in Saline County. I mean, that is where really all the hub of our election is in the clerk's office. But back in those days, my job was really and we paid poll workers then $7.50 for, I mean, it's more than a day's work. I mean, you had to count, you stayed and you counted votes till it all come in, and then we'd get them at the courthouse, and we'd get them up there, and I mean, we had to wait till every box come in. I mean, it was terrible.
Just terrible waiting at all the boxes came in for all the polling places. Who wants to do that? He's about to talk about the way they counted votes and the way they decided who won elections in Saline County back in the day that in this day and age seems to be somewhat questionable, and actually should have been somewhat questionable in that day and age, but I guess when it comes to Democrat Party politics in Saline County, it's just important to keep it all in the family.
I'll never forget, people say that Republicans and Democrats don't work together, but I'm going to tell you, he lives right here in town, our state chairman of the Republican Party is Doyle Webb. Doyle was the county chairman at that time, and I was the secretary of the county. It is 4 o'clock in the morning. Listen to this. Andy Somerville was a mayor down at Twicewood, and he did a lot of good for that area of the county. And quick as he came in the door, we were tickled to death to come in because we knew we were going to get to go home. So that was the last box coming in. We said, who got elected mayor? The man said, listen to these words. I will never forget it. He said, Andy will be the mayor. Andy will be the mayor. And I said, what do you mean, Andy will be the mayor? He said, it was a tie, and we just flipped the coin.
See, who knew that that was in the Arkansas state statute, that if you have a tie, you flip a coin? I didn't realize. Matter of fact, I'm thinking it may not be. Matter of fact, it almost sounds like, and I don't want to go too far on a limb here, it almost sounds like Lib is implying, by the way, that's Lib Carlisle, speaking to the Saline County History and Heritage Society, that the elections were rigged, that they were fixed, and that the other Democrats, remembering those days fondly, are just laughing along. I mean, would you forgive me for inferring that from his comments, Linda Ives? Am I way off base here? Am I about to get tagged off, leaning off second base? What do you think?
Absolutely not. You're right on target.
Okay.
They picked who was going to be what, and he just outright says it.
And a little bit later, he will say that if you didn't have the blessings of Charlie Smithers, you may as well not have run for anything in Saline County. And I wonder if it was like that under Lib Carlisle, too. I wonder if it still is. I don't know. I mean, I know there have been some upsets over the years. I know there have been some upsets over the years. There have been some surprises over the years. But by and large, anyway, well, let's see what else Lib Carlisle told the Saline County History and Heritage Society about a month ago.
So see, we might have not gone strictly by all the rules, but it was fair and it was governed and it was trustworthy and they did their own.
Wait. We might not have gone strictly by all the rules, but it was fair. And it was Trastwood. So, again, I feel like Jack Nicholson at the end of the Chinatown movie. Relax, Jake, it's Chinatown. Relax, Jake, it's Trastwood. Relax, Jake, it's Saline County. Okay, I'm sorry. I cut him off. I shouldn't have done that. Here's what he said.
So see, we might have not gone strictly by all the rules, but it was fair and it was governed and it was trustworthy and they did their own thing and Andy was the mayor. So that was that. We've had a lot of people in Saline County, and we've always been active. Politics has always been part of our life down here.
Really?
And we've always contributed people from this county to be leaders in our state and leaders in our nation. A lot of hub has come from this area. You remember the mayor, George Trout? Remember George Trout? Great guy. He would saucer his coffee. He never would drink coffee. He would saucer it. And it didn't matter if he's in Washington, D.C. or anywhere, he'd saucer his coffee. But he did a whole lot of good for our city. He kind of put all blacktop on all the streets, I mean, if you remember. And he owned the buses, and Benton School District didn't have buses, so they rent the buses from him, and that's how we use buses, because the school district too poor to buy them at that time. He got the buses, and he'd rent them to them, and that's how the kids got back and forth to school.
Fascinating. Number one, am I supposed to trust a man who saucers his coffee? I don't think so. I don't think so. To me, that's perverse, just right there. Number two, if the school district couldn't afford to buy school buses, how on earth could they afford to rent them, which would have been, let's see, what's the phrase I'm looking for? More expensive.
It's very handy. Very convenient.
For the guy that owned the buses.
Right.
Wow. All right, we have more coming up from a very interesting and eye-opening conversation that Lib Carlisle, who I think for many years has been kind of a political kingpin in Saline County, had recently with the Saline County History and Heritage Society. And again, my guest is Linda Ives. And Linda, we're going to fold this all back into the Boys on the Tracks and the complaint for freedom of information that you filed just a couple of days ago with the CIA, the FBI, Arkansas State Police, Saline County Sheriff's Office, U.S. Attorney's Office, all kinds of other folks, DEA. And I appreciate the patience of the listeners as, in my ham-handed way, I try to lay a foundation here for what we're trying to talk about today. I appreciate y'all's patience, appreciate Linda's patience. It's the Doc Washburn Show. You got it. News Radio 1029, KARN. See, I had no idea. I was born and raised in the South, but kind of a city boy. You know, I grew up in Charlotte. It's a big city. And I had read a biography of Lyndon Baines Johnson about how funky things were back in the 50s with elections in his part of Texas and getting elected to one thing or another. But, well, I guess that's right next door, right?
Right.
So apparently, from Lib Carlisle's own explanation to the Saline County History and Heritage Society, they kind of played fast and loose with the rules. Well, we just said it. Well, we might not have gone exactly by the rules, but it was fair. It was Trasquid. I mean, come on. What are you going to say? Linda Ives in with us to talk about her freedom of information complaint to all kinds of federal and state agencies today on the Boys in the Tracks murders. And we have just stumbled across, I think, a treasure trove of fascinating information to kind of put Saline County into perspective by the one guy who would know better than anybody else, I guess, Lib Carlisle, who gave a talk to the Saline County History and Heritage Society about a month ago. And again, I can't say this often enough. I can't say thank you enough. I've never met her. Hope to someday. But I can't say thank you enough to Shelley Poole of MySaline.com for having the presence of mind to set up some way to videotape Mr. Carlisle's speech to the Saline County History and Heritage Society, and having the presence of mind to say, you know what, this might have some kind of historical import, and I've got this YouTube channel. Why not put it up there? Because that's a first. I can't find a videotape of Lib Carlisle talking to anybody about anything anywhere else on the internet, YouTube or not. So Shelley Poole really doing heavy lifting, doing the yeoman's work there to preserve the historical record. And I'm so thankful that I was able to get the whole 60 minutes. I've got audio of the whole thing in case, by some unfortunate happenstance, it might disappear from YouTube. Anyway, here's more of Lib Carlisle.
So he decided that he was going to run for county judge against Mr. Charlie.
Uh-oh. That was the mayor of
And
Traskville.
speaking that night, I remembered I was a little boy, but of course, when it was preparing, of course, that's where 99% of all, back a long time ago, that's where our political leaders come from, was Perry, because that's where Mr. Charlie was from. So we go up there, and I will never forget this the longest I live. Mr. George Trout had a Cadillac. Well, that was a no-no. I mean, if you drove a Cadillac, you were a rich mogul, and you had to steal it somewhere because you didn't make it.
Now, think about the implication. This was back in the days, probably when FDR was still president. That would be my guess. And his fiscal policies, and by the way, FDR, big hero to Bill and Hillary, but his fiscal policies helped extend the Great Depression many years past when it should have been extended. And so a lot of folks in rural America, I don't care if you're in the South, Midwest, wherever, were dirt poor. And they didn't know why they were dirt poor. They didn't know that Roosevelt was making it much, 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 much worse for many, many, many years. And so if some guy had a Cadillac, there's no way you get that on your own. You must have stole something from somebody. Or as Bill Clinton would say, we got a saying down in Arkansas, when you see one of them snapping box turtles on top of a fence post, you know good and well he did not get there by himself. And, of course, a lot of people say that about Bill, too. But anyway, so the mayor of Traskwood is going to run for a JP, county judge, against Mr. Charlie Smithers. And he's the only guy, from what Lib is saying, in the county who has a Cadillac at this time. And you're goofing up just from the start on that. Here's how it goes.
Can you think we only have one Cadillac now in the whole county, and our mayor? And Mr. Charlie, he let him talk. Well, he didn't care. Mr. Charlie got every vote prepared. But anyway, Mr. Charlie got up and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you tonight, my worthy opponent is a good mayor. He just should have stayed in Benton and come up here to see us. We don't mind him visiting us up here, but he come up here in that great big old Cadillac and said, you know how I got up here? I come up here in my old pickup truck and said, I come home tonight. This is my home up here. Oh, Mr. George, bless his heart, I felt sorry for him because he had to come all the way from Perry to Benton by himself. And all the votes went to Mr. Charlie.
All the votes. Fascinating. All the votes. Lib Carlisle was kind of like a mentor to Bill Clinton. In the same sense, I think that Senator Fulbright was a mentor to Bill Clinton. Several other people. But Charlie Smithers was a mentor to Lib Carlisle, and we have about a 10-second soundbite here. What Lib said about the kind of power that Charlie Smithers wielded in Saline County back in the day.
He would kind of select who would run for what office. And if you didn't get his blessing, you might as well stay home and not run. That's just the way it was.
He would kind of select who would run for what office. And if you didn't receive his blessing, you might as well just have stayed home. That's just the way it was. Linda Ives, it reminds me, 2 years ago, Mark Pryor's college thesis came out from about 1985 or 86. and he said that the state of Arkansas reacted to President Eisenhower desegregating Central High School in Little Rock by becoming just hardcore Democrat Party. As a college senior now, Mark Pryor's college thesis, and he thought that if, and look, I'm not trying to carry water for the Republicans because I'm pretty upset and disgusted with a lot of things they've done over the years too. But Mark Pryor said that he thought that if we ever had actual, real prosperity in the natural state, if we actually really started seeing some economic growth here, then that would be the thing that would perhaps release the stranglehold that the Democratic Party had on politics here in the state of Arkansas. Now, what I want to do next, Lib Carlisle had some things to say about a former sheriff that's no longer around, a fellow named James Steed. Now, Sheriff Steed was a sheriff when your son and his friend Don Henry were murdered and put on those railroad tracks. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so it was Sheriff Steed's deputies that showed up and refused to listen to the guys on the train, refused to listen to the paramedics, even refused to listen to the other deputy, Kathy Carty.
Yes, absolutely.
Refused to even consider the possibility that a crime had been committed. And I read that chapter of the book on the air the other day, because even an Arkansas State Police patrolman who had been in that area a few hours earlier because he'd heard there was a report of a couple of gunshots, he showed up and he thought, I don't really have jurisdiction here, but man, this is kind of weird. Police training teaches you treat it like a homicide until you can, come up with reasons not to treat it like a homicide. And these guys right off the bat aren't even considering that possibility. Well, Rick Elmendorf was in the paper 2 days later, said it's very unusual, and we haven't counted anything out except, of course, foul play. So this was the sheriff over these guys that Lib Carlisle praised posthumously in his talk to the Saline County History and Heritage Society about a month ago. And it's up on YouTube. You just go on YouTube and you do a search for the name Lib Carlisle, and it's right there. And we want to play what he says about that sheriff coming up next.
CBS News Update. U.S. Health.
Ride home.
You just have to learn to deal with it.
Live and local.
I just work there. I don't know.
On News Radio 102.9 KARN.
Cancellation fee may apply.
Backyard Burgers is back. Hey, this is Doc Washburn, and I'm excited to tell you the new Backyard Burgers is open on North Shackelford, right in front of the old Kroger in West Little Rock. Backyard Burgers is home of the original, mouth-watering Angus burger. Meat with only the finest cuts of beef, chopped sirloin and round. Thick, juicy, and grilled to order, the way a burger should be. And don't tell the guys with the cows on the billboards, but Backyard Burgers has the best tasting chicken sandwiches. Once you taste Backyard Burgers blackened chicken sandwich, blackjack chicken club, grilled chicken sandwich, or Hawaiian chicken sandwich, you won't want to get a chicken sandwich anywhere else. I've been eating Backyard Burgers since 1988, and I am so excited that they are back in Little Rock. Backyard Burgers, the best burgers and the best chicken sandwiches. Welcome to our backyard. Backyard Burgers in Benton and Backyard Burgers in front of the old Kroger right next to Emmanuel Baptist, North Shackelford, West Little Rock. Backyard Burgers is back.
News, weather, traffic, and Doc Washburn on News Radio 102.9 KARN.
We are listening, and by we, in case you're just tuning in, my guest is Linda Ives, and she's the mother of Kevin Ives, who's one of the two boys in the tracks, murdered 29 years ago this week in Saline County, on or near the railroad tracks, which is why they're called The Boys on the Tracks. And if you have not read the book, The Boys on the Tracks by Mara Leverett, You need to read it. All right, now, one of the things the book goes into great detail on is that when the fellows on the train call the police, well, they're in an unincorporated area of Saline County, so sheriff's deputies show up. Sheriff's deputies ignored what the fellows on the train told them about the fact that those boys had to be dead before they ran over them. Ignored what they told them about a tarp being on their bodies. Ignored what they told them about a gun. They showed them the gun. They showed them the tarp. The alleged tarp, the alleged gun. No, it's right here, bro. Ignored what the paramedics said. Ignored even what their other deputy, Kathy Carty, said. So who was the sheriff at the time? Who did these deputies report to? Who were they accountable to? The sheriff at the time was a fellow named James Steed. Lib Carlisle, political kingpin, in my humble opinion, of Saline County for many, many years. A fellow who was really, really tight with Governor Clinton. Spoke a month ago at the Saline County History and Heritage Society. And he was reminiscing about people from the past. And here's what he said about Sheriff James Steed, who a lot of folks thought was part of the problem, part of the impediment to there being a legitimate investigation into the deaths of those boys, Kevin Ives and Don Henry, and if I may, possibly even part of the problem into trying to figure out anything about the other murders, because he was still sheriff for what, a year or two after that, and a lot of and people were dropping like flies in Saline County. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They were dropping like flies.
And it always seemed to be people who knew something about the boys in the track. So, anyway, Lib Carlisle's remembrance of the sheriff is very different from the portrait that is painted of him in the book The Boys on the Tracks. So here's what Lib Carlisle said about Sheriff James Steed.
We had a rising star named James Steed. He died.
He says, we had a rising star in James Steed. He died.
There's no question in my mind he would have been governor or senator or something if he lived.
There's no question in my mind he would have been governor or senator or something if he lived. Linda, does that seem kind of odd to you?
Seems pretty preposterous to me. Jim Steed, what can I say?
He didn't seem to have. Let me put it into perspective. Did he seem to have the kind of political skills, political acumen that a Bill Clinton, a Dale Bumpers, a Mark Pryor would have had, a David Pryor?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I had no idea he had any political ambition. He was not your typical rising star, in my opinion, at the time. I found that statement that Lib Carlisle made laughable, actually.
Okay, he didn't remind you of BB or Jim Guy Tucker or Mike Huckabee or anybody like that?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right. Here's more Lib Carlisle on Sheriff James Steed.
James Steed, I want to mention his name because he was a great leader. He just died young.
James Steed, I wanted to mention his name because he was a great leader. He just died young. Okay?
But I say he wore it out early because he was one of those that really helped Saline County. And he never forgot who put him where he was, and that's good.
But I say he wore it out early because he was one of those that really helped when it counted, and he never forgot who put him where he was. and that's good. Linda Ives, let me ask you, when you hear political kingpin of Saline County, Lib Carlisle, say this about the man who was sheriff when your boy and his friend were murdered.
And he never forgot who put him where he was.
What do those words suggest to you?
Well, I think he was a team player. He did what they wanted him to do. That's the kind of people they like. That's the kind of people they put in places like that.
And if somebody's not willing to play ball, for instance, your friend Gene Duffy, who was trying to investigate and trying to get to the bottom of what happened, they pretty much ran her out of the state, right?
Absolutely did. She literally was in fear for her life.
Now, tell me, was she an assistant prosecuting attorney whose, if I remember correctly, it's been about a year and a half since I read the book, but her area of expertise, what she was supposed to specialize on, was trying to combat the rampant illegal drug trade in Saline County. Am I correct on that?
Right. She was made the head of the first 6th Judicial Drug Task Force.
Yeah.
And she actually didn't even want the job and turned it down numerous times, and they insisted on her being in charge of that. So she agreed to it for a short period of time. And I guess they thought that they could control her like they did everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't want to play their game.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't think James Steed was still sheriff when she got run out of the county, but Dan Harmon was definitely the prosecuting attorney at that point, right?
Yes, absolutely. Dan was instrumental in smearing Jean and destroying her reputation. And it was hard for her to accomplish anything after that.
And oddly enough, as I read in the book the other day, Dan had a lot of help.
Oh, yeah, he had a lot of help.
I mean, John Brummett, who these days, as a respected elder statesman and political columnist in the august pages of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, at the time was a political reporter for the Arkansas Times, and he interviewed Gene Duffy, and he said that her wild allegations had been thoroughly discredited. And as far as I know, Mr. Brummett, correct me if I'm wrong, and we'll correct the record. As far as I know, even when Harmon went to jail a few years later, I don't think Brummett ever took it back.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Wow. Wow.
Absolutely not.
Wow. 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 All right. There's so much we want to get to today, and I appreciate your patience with me, Linda Ives, and in my attempt to get to what we're trying to get to. I know there's a lot you want to talk about today about the complaint for freedom of information, but there's also a good bit to talk about the Saline County Memorial Hospital scandal, which predated the Boys in the Tracks by several years. I know if you've been listening since 2, you may be thinking, wait a minute, so you guys are just scratching the surface? And the answer will be yes in the affirmative. We are just scratching the surface. All right. The Doc Washburn Show continues. You know what? I haven't given out the phone number. Let me just go ahead and give out the phone number, because every once in a while people have, things they want to contribute to the discussion. And we've been on the air now for almost 2 hours. I haven't given out the phone number yet. And we've had a couple of people call. We just haven't had time to get them on. If you would like to sound off and talk back, the number to call is 433-0092. The Doc Washburn Show continues with our guest and my friend, Linda Ives. You got it, News Radio 1029 KARN. All right, y'all, look, ears may come in pairs, but that does not necessarily mean that hearing conditions also, also come in twos. Doc Washburn for Little Rock Audiology. Did you know that only being able to hear out of one ear is still a huge handicap? It causes difficulty.
Been local from the heart of Arkansas. Doc Washburn on News Radio 1029 KARN. You don't.
The core. Everything good for your mind, body, and soul.
Taking you home until 6 o'clock on News Radio 1029 KARN.
And the phones are ringing at 433-0092 to sound off and talk back. Linda Ives, let me ask you, Mara Leverett's book, Boys in the Tracks, talks about the fact that early on in the investigation into your son and his friend's death, you had a lot of hope in Dan Harmon, who was a pretty popular guy in the community at the time, early on, right?
Absolutely. I absolutely adored Dan Harmon for a number of years.
Yeah.
Thinking he was helping us when nobody else would.
And even when you started hearing conflicting opinions, you're kind of like, no. Because he presents well.
He does.
I mean, if you weren't there when he allegedly threatened violence against the sheriff in front of deputies, if you weren't there when he was beating up allegedly a wife or a girlfriend, he knew how to kind of pull it together and come across in a very appealing manner and was very believable, and we're going to get to the bottom of this, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
All right.
He was very good at explaining it away.
All right. Now, on line one, we have someone who does not want to put a name up. That's fine, but has a personal anecdote about one and the same former Saline County Prosecuting Attorney Dan Harmon. All right. You're on the Doc Washburn Show with Linda Ives, and we appreciate your courage for even calling in. What's up?
Okay. Way back in the day, I cannot even tell you how many years ago it was, I had to testify before the federal grand jury because I knew someone that was related to Dan Harmon that told me some stuff, and I ended up losing a job as a dental assistant because Jerry, somebody that was with the drug task force, was a patient there, and his family was, and all their records were blackballed. And Miss Jean Duffy came to me when my husband and my brother-in-law were arrested for whatever it was they were arrested for, and asked me to go to Dan Harmon and be wired and say that I could not pay for an attorney, but I could pay for it with cocaine, and I refused to do it. I said, all I'm concerned about is getting my car out of impoundment. I don't want to be involved in this mess.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that it was just a crooked, big pile of mess.
Yeah.
And I was scared. I was really, honest to God, scared. That's why I would not go to Dan Harmon with a wire. I told Miss Duffy when she came to my house, I lived in a trailer park in Benton. I told her that I would not do that because all I wanted to get was my car out of impoundment. I did not care if my husband, my brother-in-law, how long they stayed in jail or anything else, but I wanted no part of that. But I know that there was some crap going on because way back in the day before that, I dated a guy that got DWI after DWI after DWI, and Dan Harmon was his attorney, and his paperwork kept getting lost. His files kept getting lost. He probably had 6 DWIs, no bull crap.
I'm shocked.
He probably had 6 DWIs.
I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
Pushed to the side.
I was trying to make a little funny there. I apologize. So let me ask you this. When Dan Harmon finally went to prison, I think about 1997 on drug charges, was that a surprise?
No, sir, it was not. It was not whatsoever. No.
So apparently, eventually, somebody was willing to wear a wire or something.
And it was not a surprise to me whatsoever when Miss Jean Duffy had to leave the state. But I was not going to be a participant in wearing a wire and going to Dan Harmon saying, I can't afford to pay you as an attorney, pay you attorney fees, but I can pay you with cocaine. There was no way. I had two young children. I had a job I had to take care of. My husband, whatever he was involved in, I was so damn mad at him, I couldn't even freaking think straight.
Yeah.
and I didn't give a damn. Maybe I could have helped out things more, but all I wanted was the car back out of impoundment so I could get to work and get my kids to daycare.
Right. And the whole idea.
I know for a fact.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, sorry. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the whole idea of wearing a wire with someone,
I was scared to death.
yeah, with someone like Dan Harmon, who was known to have a violent temper in the first place, and was
scared
pretty,
to death.
yeah,
I was totally freaking scared to death.
Sure.
I was just some little country bumpkin woman married to somebody that I shouldn't have been married to.
Yeah.
And in a situation that I shouldn't have been involved in, and I really had no idea what I was involved in, and I had to leave work, and I had to take my freaking paperwork. There was a black man in a big old fancy freaking sports car that came to my house and subpoenaed me and my husband. And I had to take off work and go before the federal grand jury, and I was the only one that actually had to go in there and testify. My husband, he didn't have to. They knocked it out. But I was scared to death. I was a nobody. I was just a nobody, and all I knew about was some hearsay crap, you know?
Yeah, sure.
I was scared to death. But when she came to me, and Miss Jean Duffy, and said, you can get your husband out of this trouble if you will wear a wire and go before him and say, I can't pay you with money, but I can pay you with cocaine. I'm like, F that.
Yes.
I just want my car back out of impoundment so I can get to work.
To use the legal term, yeah. Linda Ives, your thoughts?
Bless your heart, man. Bless your heart.
Thank you.
I'm a mother of two children or two grown people now, and I can't even imagine. But I always thought it was bullcrap. I mean, I've smoked pot all my freaking life, and I have never smoked so much damn pot that I could fall asleep on a set of freaking railroad tracks or wherever.
Yeah.
And something happened to me bad where I didn't know.
Understandably, yes.
I mean, I'm a pothead. And freaking pot don't do you that way.
Right. Understandably. Well, ma'am, we really appreciate you calling in and contributing to the program today, and we just thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. You have a great day. Thank you very much. Not a surprise, obviously. Not a surprise. Let me grab one more call here before we run out of time. Going to the top of the hour news. I have a caller from Hot Springs Village on the Doc Washburn Show with Linda Ives. What's up?
Hey, Doc.
Hey.
I wonder, does Miss Ives know if her son may have possibly been involved with some of the other young men that were picking up the drugs in the fields at Mena?
At Mena?
Yes, in Mena.
I think he probably would have been too young to go to Mena. I
don't know.
I mean, they were...
Maybe his friends. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there have been a lot of stories of drugs being transferred from Mena to Saline County, and
yeah, but there were multiple young men that were picking those drugs up out in those fields, and I know for a fact one of them worked for a friend of mine, which is a floor layer, and he done labor for him, and he told my friend that he made money on the side picking up drugs out of the fields in Mena, and he moved from Little Rock because he was in fear of his life, and he moved to Perry on the other side of Perryville, and he come home from work one day, and there was somebody waiting for him in his kitchen with a shotgun and killed him.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. And, before Bill announced he was running for president, there was, that's back when we had VHS movie houses all over the place. You could go in there and buy and rent this video called The Mena Connection.
Yeah.
And this guy that produced this video, he told the story of what was going on with Saline County, all the corruption in our state, and that 11 men were killed, and they were the ones that were picking up the drugs in the field.
Wow.
And before Bill announced he was running for president, they pulled every one of those videos off the shelf.
Well, I tell you one thing. It's on YouTube now. The Mina Connection, all 2 hours and 21 minutes is on YouTube.
Yes.
I mean, I don't doubt they pulled it out of the video stores when he was running. I'll tell you what, can you give me the name of your friend that got killed?
His name was Michael Samples.
Michael Samples.
Yes, he was not my friend, but
Okay.
he worked for a friend of mine.
Right. I tell you what, we got to run to the top of the hour news, but if you can send me some information, a private message on Facebook, I'd sure appreciate it.
Okay, but really, Doc, that's all I really know. I did see the video, but that has been so long.
We got to run to it, but I appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you very much. More coming up. It's 4 o'clock.
Doc Washburn, live and local on News Radio 1029, KARN FM, Sheridan, Little Rock, a Cumulus station.
AccuWeather forecast for Central Arkansas. I got to tell you something. If you thought last week that summer was going away, no, absolutely not. Summer is here to stay, at least till, what is it, around here, maybe late September, something like that. Yeah, summer is here. No, I'm not giving you any more right now. It's hot outside. That's just going to have to do you for now. You got it. News Radio 1029, KARN.
Doc Washburn on News Radio 1029, KARN.
All right, the Doc Washburn Show continues, and we're talking to my friend Linda Ives and her son Kevin Ives and his friend Don Henry were the two fellows that have become known as the boys in the tracks. Now, Ms. Linda, we eventually want to get to the complaint for freedom of information that you filed by and through your counsel, R. David Lewis, a couple of days ago in federal court against the CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, Justice Department, Homeland Security Department, DEA, FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office, U.S. State Department, and then the Arkansas State Police, Bryant Police Department, Saline County Sheriff's Office. But there is a whole aspect to all of this that you wanted to share that a lot of people who may have read the Boys on the Tracks book, may have seen the Mina Connection video, may have really followed all this, seen the obstruction of justice video, may not be aware of, and that is the tie-in with Saline County Memorial Hospital. And that goes back to before all this happened to your son and his friend. This goes back to the early 80s. And you have a lot of documentation and paperwork that you've been very patient because you've been here for a couple hours already. And I just wanted to give you this opportunity to share with us what's on your mind, what's on your heart about that.
Well, I believe Dan Harmon has been protected for many years. It doesn't seem to matter what he does, where he does it even. Somebody is protecting him for whatever reason, and I believe part of it is the videotapes that he still has that he got from the Saline Memorial Hospital case when he was the special prosecutor in that grand jury. I know of instances that he's used it already. I don't know that that's the only place it comes from, but I certainly think it's part of the protection that he has.
Okay, now, these videotapes, there was, if I understand correctly, a house on the lake in Saline County where they had parties and a lot of high rollers.
Yes.
And what could diplomatically be called call girls.
Yes. And drugs.
And drugs. And this would be in the early 80s, and the scandal if I understand the allegations correctly, was involved around trying to lobby the Rivendell Company into coming into Saline County.
Yes, a lot of local people, including Lib Carlisle, stood to make a lot of money if they could get Rivendell to build here in Saline County. And they spent a lot of money in an effort to bring them here.
And if you're just tuning in, Lib Carlisle, political kingmaker in Saline County for many, many years, former state director of the Democrat Party, but very much under the radar. Very good friends with Bill Clinton, but very much under the radar. And we played some audio earlier in the program of the first public address I think he's ever given that wound up on YouTube a month ago, the Saline County Historical and Heritage Society, and some interesting assertions that he made at the time. So, it's your opinion, because let's face it, I mean, a lot of people who were related to the Boys in the Track scandal didn't live long after that. A number of people were murdered within the next year or so.
That's absolutely true. It seems like anybody that had any information supposedly turned up dead.
And yet, Dan Harmon is still with us all these years later. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't. You're right. He has some kind of insurance policy. And I think these videotapes are a lot of it. He's got information, and certainly information that he would have had as prosecutor of the county. He had a lot of, he had a way of doing favors for a lot of people. When he was prosecutor, he made charges go away. All you had to do was come up with enough money.
Yeah.
And there is evidence that he attended parties there at the lake house. I have notes from a girl that was written, and she talks about who was at the lake house at that particular time, and it was. I'll just read from her notes here. She says, Paul said the Clintons, both brother and Roger Clinton and Bill, were there along with the sheriff, James Steed, and many other high-ups. He said they had women and drugs and were passing joints around. It was just business as usual. They would get people there and put them in compromising positions and videotape them, and then it was later used for, whether it was to get money that they wanted from the hospital or if it was political favors or whatever it might be. I know of one instance when Bill Clinton was being investigated in 1990, and he showed up at Chuck Banks' office with a videotape.
Bill Clinton showed up with a video?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just misspoke. No.
Dan Harmon.
Dan Harmon took a videotape to Chuck Banks' office.
Chuck Banks was the U.S. attorney.
Yes, Chuck Banks was the U.S. attorney investigating him.
Okay.
Although Bob Govar was in charge of the investigation, a deputy U.S. attorney. And the grand jury was saying they were going to indict at any time. He was looking at multiple felonies.
And that's in the internal memo that I read the other day from Bob Govar to Chuck Banks, yeah.
Yes, that's in the inner office memo that...
So Dan Harmon, you're saying, showed up with a videotape.
Right. In Banks' office. He was looking at felonies. When he walked out, he had misdemeanor tax evasion charge. So, and there's multiple documents stating that he used videotapes, to get things accomplished that he wanted to.
Like getting charges reduced.
Yes.
More coming up straight ahead with Linda Ives. More than you've probably ever heard about the Boys in the Tracks tragedy from 29 years ago this week. As the Doc Washburn Show continues, of course, if you would like to sound off and talk back, the number to call is 433-0092. We do have lines open. If you're already in hold, don't lose your place. Doc Washburn Show continues at 6 every 10 minutes. You got it. News Radio 102.9 KARN.
KARN.
All right, Linda Ives is my friend, and she is our guest today. Tragically lost her son, Kevin, 29 years ago this week. He and his friend Don Henry are the boys in the tracks. The young men that were run over by a railroad train. Everybody on the train knew. The paramedics knew. Even one of the deputies knew. These boys were murdered before the train ran over them. And yet, Sheriff James Steed's deputies who showed up refused to consider the possibility that a crime had been committed. Even Sheriff James Steed's deputy, Rick Elmendorf, told the paper a couple of days later, well, we haven't ruled anything out except for foul play. Rick's still around, by the way. Most of the rest of them aren't. 433-0092 to sound off and talk back. Got a couple of people waiting to talk to you, Ms. Linda. Let's grab the one who's been waiting the longest. Andy in North Little Rock, you're on the Doc Washburn Show with Linda Ives. What's up, brother?
Hey, not a lot, Dave. Doc, my question is, I've been listening. I was born and raised in Benton. I know a whole lot about this story.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Roger and Bill were both involved, and Dan Harmon naturally, but also the sheriff of Saline, the sheriff now, the chief of police, one of the two that is active now in one of those offices, was also involved in this. And if you remember, not too long after it happened, he disappeared. And then all of a sudden here, within the last couple of years, he showed back up, and now he's sheriff.
You mean police chief?
Yeah, police chief. Yes,
now,
sir.
when you say involved in this, are you talking about the Saline County Memorial Hospital scandal with all the drug parties? Or are you talking about the boys in the tracks? Or what are you talking about?
He was involved with the boys in the tracks, and the Saline Memorial. He had his finger in everything, and I've soaked up just about everything I can. As far as in '87, I was still a kid, but my dad told me a lot about what went on because he was around when it happened. And the thing that I'm not hearing about is people not talking about is how much how much involvement Hillary Clinton had in this, in covering up for her husband and Roger and such and such. I mean, is there any more information on her involvement?
Well, let me try to give an answer, and then I'll let Ms. Linda get in a word edgewise.
Okay.
Until, I think it was 1995 or 1996, when the Clinton White House sicked a reporter from the New York Times Sunday Magazine onto Linda Ives, trying to smear her as a group of quote-unquote Clinton haters. I don't know if Linda had really thought much up until that point about Clinton's involvement in covering up what happened to her son and his friend, but if she hadn't thought about it before, that really made the alarm bells go off because, by that time he's president for 3 or 4 years. Why is he worried about little old me down here in Benton, Arkansas? Ms. Linda, does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I think there were a lot of people there that night. You're talking about Kirk Lane, I'm assuming.
That's who it is. I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah, who's the
chief of police?
Chief of police of Benton now, right?
And I think everybody in the whole wide world knows that I believe that Kirk Lane was involved. Here's the thing.
Hold that thought. Hang on just a second, brother.
Okay.
And hang on, Ms. Linda. One moment. Traffic.
Drinking, don't drive. Designate a driver or find a different ride home. Drive sober or get pulled over.
We return with our call from Andy in North Little Rock talking about the allegations that a whole lot of powerful folks in law enforcement were involved in either the murder of or the cover-up of Kevin Ives and Don Henry. And Andy brought up, not by name, you furnished the name of the current chief of police of Benton, Arkansas, that he's like, yeah, that's the guy. You believe Kirk Lane was there the night your boys were killed, but you're about to say, here's the thing, when I had to break for traffic and weather. So go right ahead.
Well, I think there were a number of people there on the tracks that night. Information we've gotten from pilots and various others is that the drops were a regular thing going on in that particular area. The drop before that one had gone missing, and everybody on the ground was on high alert trying to figure out who was messing with their drops, and Kevin and Dawn showed up. I think there were a lot of people there to provide security. And
by the way, Andy, if you could turn your radio down, that'd be helpful because it's getting some feedback. Because obviously, if you're allegedly importing illegal drugs in and to make a lot of money, and then you miss out on some money because the drugs disappear, then it's going to be like, okay, wait a minute, hold up, we got to tighten this up. So it would stand to reason, especially if law enforcement was involved in covering up for helping the transport of illegal drugs, then all kinds of people might have been there.
Right, and I think there were extra people there trying to figure out what was going on. And, there's, I don't know how many different theories out there. The theory is that Kevin and Dawn were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Another theory is they were there to rip off the drugs. Another theory is that somebody else got it and decided to blame it on them. There's 40 different things out there that, have been speculated about, which we just really don't know at this point. But I think that, it's been 30 years. Time is our worst enemy.
Yeah.
And right now we've got a confession from a woman named Charlene Wilson, who was there with Harmon, and I believe everything that she said. The things that she says in her confession match the evidence. They match the crime scene. We've checked out things that we could check out trying to prove or disprove what she says, and we absolutely believe everything she said in her confession. And the two people that are still alive that are in that confession are her and Dan Harmon. And so that's our focus, get who we can at this point.
Also, back, on the subject of Dan Harmon, I've known him pretty much all my life, and I think the snake's back straighter than what he is. But there was an incident that happened, it's been many years ago, and I've heard the stories come out. I think it was the last time that he went to jail that I've heard stories, but I hadn't had confirmation on if it was true or not. But he got like really high and shaved his head and then decided to run butt naked down Main Street.
That's about right. When he ran for sheriff and lost.
No.
So this was it when he was in prison?
I think it was like the last time he went, or he had just gotten out or something. I've heard 2 or 3 different stories about it.
Well, I wouldn't discount anything anybody said about Dan Harmon.
No, I don't.
So.
But I read that letter from that lady that did the confession. I mean, it was pretty convincing. And me, I was still a kid back in '87, but as I grew up and kept hearing about, I started reading everything I could find about it. And then I started digging into other stuff, and other people that knew more than what I did, started asking questions. Okay, how come nobody's talking about Hillary's involvement in this, as she tried to help cover it up to keep Bill and Roger out of trouble?
Hold that thought, Andy. Hold that thought. We got to go to news. More calls coming up. 433-0092 on the Doc Washburn Show.
CBS News Up.
29th anniversary of Boys in the Tracks was this week. Linda Ives, mother of Kevin Ives, is in studio with us. And before we went to the break, we were talking to Andy in North Little Rock. Ordinarily, if I'm going to a long bottom-of-the-hour break, I'll say, hey, we got to run. Thanks for your call. But this is different. And just on the off chance that Andy had more to share with us, we decided to hold him over. Andy, appreciate your patience, brother. You're talking earlier about having known Dan Harmon most of your life. Do you want to give any details on how you knew him, or?
Well, I just knew him, by being, living in Benton, all my life, and just, knowing I'm passing him in town and everything, and knew how he was, and people that knew him, and then plus, half the guys I went to school with knew how crooked he was, and there was a lot of guys that I went to school with that got their marijuana from him, but that's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
But my big thing was, as I've been listening and reading and about this, and there's nothing been said, as to Hillary's involvement. I go back to that as to her involvement covering up, trying to keep Bill and Roger out of trouble. That's my biggest concern. Why is this? We all know that Bill and Roger and Dan and the police officers and all that were involved. But, I haven't really found anything that goes into detail about Hillary's involvement in it and what she did as far as helping Bill cover it up.
Yeah, any thoughts on that, Linda?
I don't know. I don't know that Hillary played any important part as far as...
she probably didn't have to because they're on it.
Right, they were on it. They were all on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think her main thing was cleaning up after Bill. And that's what she spent her life doing, is cleaning up after Bill. Hillary's always been the one who was interested in the power and the greed and everything like that. Bill was there for a good time anywhere he was.
I read a while back, about a year or so ago, big difference between Bill and Hillary. Bill is the kind of guy who walks into a room full of people and he knows somehow instinctively who is not on board with him, and he walks right over that person, doesn't matter if it's male or female, and just charms the socks off of him, and that person's like, hey, he seems like a pretty nice guy. Bill is the life of the party. As my peeps will say, party don't get started till Bill shows up. And then, that's when the party gets started. So he is very much a social kind of person, very political. I mean, he's in his element. And it's always been that way. And Hillary is the exact opposite. To her, a room full of people she doesn't know is just landmines. She wants to stay as far away from that sort of thing as possible. You see on the campaign trail, everything has to be very tightly controlled and scripted. Whereas with Bill, hey, man, let's just roll with it. I don't care. I can deal with it. Hillary's the exact opposite. Would you agree, Linda?
Oh, I absolutely would agree.
Yeah. Yeah, Andy. Go ahead.
And I would agree with that, too, as well. And another difference is, Hillary wore the bigger pants in the family as well, as that goes, too.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what size she is. Probably, more today than, 30, 40 years ago.
I'm not saying that in light of, of a size issue.
Well, again, my feeble attempt at humor. You know me, I'm a recovering DJ. All right, Andy, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much.
Miss Linda, if you do find out any information, I'm going to keep digging and see if I can. If I find it, I'll be sure to post it over to the Kevin Ives and little Facebook thing you got. And if you find anything, I'll just post it there, and I'll be sure to read it.
That's great. Thanks. I'm going to read it. I'm there all the time.
All right.
And interested, and I will keep you posted of anything that develops that I can. I hope to get some information and reports out of this lawsuit.
And I'm hoping justice comes.
Amen. Andy, we appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you very much. By the way, he was referring to the Facebook page. It's a closed group, but you can apply to get in, and Mr. Linda will take a look at your request. Justice for Kevin Ives and Don Henry is a Facebook page, and there is all kinds of information on there. I know, but I got to go to line 2 first, all right? Oh, yeah, right. Okay, yeah, I got it. Okay. All right, let me see. Billy in Clinton, we appreciate your patience, brother. What's up?
Hey, Doc. I lived in, I told you my dog was a classmate of Kevin and, at Bryant.
Yeah.
Right.
And, the kids. But when you talk about Lib Carlisle, that struck a nerve with me. It's Rivendell. He owned Thomas Real Estate there in Benton.
Right.
And William Lesage, had a place out there on Highway 5. He built it.
Right.
He put it through Thomas's, and they was from Tennessee, the company was.
Yeah.
And he just stuck $100,000 on it for himself.
He did. The asking price was...
Do you remember that?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Now, was that Lib that we're talking about here?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The Sages wanted $250,000 for their property and home, and Lib added $100,000 on to the asking price, which he claimed was his commission as realtor on it, and
See, LaFaze didn't know anything about it.
right. I've got some documents to that effect.
So a 33 and a third % commission, that's more than a lot of realtors would get.
Right.
Well, it goes back to what Lib was saying in the video we played earlier. Some of these things take a lot of hard work.
Right. And money.
Unbelievable.
And
another thing, I was going. Do you know? I've always heard that there's some kingpins in Benton. One was Lib Carlisle, and the other owns a furniture store. You know who I'm talking about.
I absolutely do know who you're talking about. I think that's kind of common knowledge, and it, it's been talked about for years, quietly, a lot of times.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to ever get something like this on the radio. Are we on the air? I'm sorry.
But, you know,
hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I got to do something. I'll get right back with you. Traffic and weather together on the 6s every 10 minutes as the Doc Washburn Show continues. You got it. News Radio 102.9 KARN.
Seeing some increased volume, 3630 exchange, as well as 30 and the River Bridge getting into 40. And a little bit of volume, 430 southbound getting into 30.
Hey, this is Doc Washburn. Look, last New Year's Eve, respiratory failure. All right, the Doc Washburn Show continues with our guest, Linda Ives, mother of Kevin Ives, one of the two boys in the tracks from August 23rd, 1987, Saline County. And we're having a conversation with Billy and Clinton, and he was right in the middle of a thought, and I had to dip out for traffic and weather. Billy, I appreciate for so rudely interrupting you. You may proceed, sir.
I was just going to add one thing, Doc.
Yeah.
This guy that owned a furniture store, I'd always heard that. And Bill Clinton went to Iowa, the campaign.
Yeah, Iowa caucus back in 92, yeah.
Yeah, and lo and behold, guess who went up there to campaign for?
It wouldn't be Curtis Ferguson, would it?
Yes, it would. He stayed up there for a month, and I thought, birds of a feather flock together.
Now, wait just a minute. I resemble that remark, Billy. I mean, I know you're calling from Clinton, Arkansas, but I had nothing to do with that town being named after me.
Thank goodness.
I'm sorry.
Well, I got to go, Doc.
All right, brother. I appreciate your patience. God bless you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your patience with my lame Clinton impersonation. 433-0092 to sound off and talk back. Let's see. The man who goes by Dorian Gray from Avila, Arkansas, and I will not ask him if it's because he has a painting in the attic that is aging. Dorian, go right ahead, sir.
Well, sir, we like to call them portraits.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Miss Ives, I pray for you every day.
Oh, thank you.
I wish we can. I get emotional every time I talk to Doc or think about it. I just wish I could meet you one day and hug you. I had a mutual friend, well, we did. Our daughters played soccer together at Bryant. And a week later, after I was talking about your ordeal in the stadium, he approached me and was talking about he had something similar. His boy was killed on the school ground with a tetherball accident. It was either Benton or Bryant Elementary.
That would be Benton. That's Johnny McMahon.
Yes, sir, McMahon. His daughter was JC.
Right.
And he was kind of shocked that someone was still talking about it, especially in the football stadium of Bryant. But the other day on the anniversary, I called every TV station and just gave them what I thought. I can hear about reports on how to make the best chocolate chip cookies, but the biggest mystery crime in the United States, y'all are not even talking about it.
Yeah.
The newspaper said they did report on it. It was coming out in the next day's paper, but I never saw anything.
Yeah, I never saw anything either. Channel 16 and 4 actually came out to my house to talk about the confession and spent nearly 4 hours with them pulling documents and them filming. It was supposed to have aired in the middle of May for the May Sweeps Week, and somebody pulled it. It never did air, and they wouldn't return calls or anything after that. I finally left kind of an ugly message and told them they at least owed me a courtesy call to let me know that it wasn't going to air.
Yes, ma'am. I accuse them. There's no investigative reporting anymore like Mel Hanks used to do.
Right.
I think
hold that thought. Hold that thought for just a second.
The Arkansas traffic.
Dorian Gray from Avila, Arkansas. Yes, sir. You were saying.
Well, sir, you was asking the other day what you thought maybe if Chuck Banks had changed his mind. He's got a real prominent law office down there in Riverdale. Well, I think someone should try to get him on the radio show and see what he thinks now about the whole deal.
You know, that might not be a bad idea.
Give him a shout.
Yeah. We could reach out to him and say, hey, Chuck, you know, the whole idea that you dropped everything on Dan Harmon because it was just, what was it, innuendo and rumors and all this kind of stuff, and then Dan went to jail a few years later. Had you ever rethought that?
Yeah, he didn't have the authority or the legal right to shut that grand jury down. And also maybe talk to, I think his name is Gary Arnold. I know his last name is Arnold, a prominent lawyer that had something to do with it. I can't really remember. I had to do some more research on it.
He was a prosecutor here in Saline County.
Yeah.
Back during that time. He never actually presided over or anything to do with our particular case, but he handled a number of other kind of controversies.
Well, he sure wound up all over the Boys on the Tracks book.
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about Gary Arnold to me, and this is just a personal opinion, I have never received any kind of information that Gary was involved in any wrongdoing himself, but he certainly was content to sit and look the other way for many years in many instances.
You could start saying stuff about them, and then they'll threaten you with slander, but it's not slander if it's true.
It's absolutely right. That was proved back during the defamation trial on the video obstruction of justice when Kirk Lane and Jay Campbell sued.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
And what's sad, Dan Harmon's nephew being Saline County Sheriff, Kirk Lane being the Chief of Police of Benton. Come on, people.
Kind of shut us down, didn't they?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I pray for you every day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'll take all of those I can get.
Amen.
Be blessed.
Amen. God bless you. Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate it. All right, 433-0092. Who do we have on line one there, Chris?
Kelsey in Little Rock.
Okay, let's go to Kelsey in Little Rock. Kelsey, we got about a minute before the break, but we'll hold you over if we need to. Hello, Kelsey in Little Rock.
Could it be Kathy?
It could be Kathy, yes.
Okay. Well, where is Dan Harmon now?
Dan Harmon is wandering all over the state, I think. He's here in Benton a great deal of the time.
Well, if I Google it, because I just read the book.
Oh.
Yes, I did. I couldn't put it down.
Wow.
And because it's just always been so intriguing to me. But nevertheless, I like Google Dan Harmon, where is he now, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing there.
Yeah, he's here. He doesn't own any property or anything, at least.
There's no way to find him. Is he working?
Oh, he's here. No, he's not working. He's 72 years old.
He's not like working like a normal job.
I'd heard that he hangs out a lot with a lawyer who I can't think of a name, Baxter, right off the hang on just a second, Kathy. We'll continue with you here in just a moment. It's 5 o'clock.
Doc Washburn, live and local, Cumulus Station.
Yesterday afternoon, Jacksonville police received the call from Union Pacific Railroad workers just before 4 p.m. that a man was lying face down on the tracks. When officers arrived, they discovered the man was suffering from a head injury. KATV reporting he was taken to a local hospital where he is currently listed in critical condition. The man's name and age have not been released, and there is an investigation ongoing. The vice chair of the State Health Reform Task Force.
Where the forecast for Central Arkansas going to be. All right, and we return to. Who were we talking to on line one again? Kathy. Yes, Kathy. Let me get her name right this time.
Oh, okay.
Kathy, I apologize for misnaming you earlier, but we only let you get on for about a half a minute before the top of the hour news, so we want to go back to you. Go right ahead.
Well, I just don't have anything else to say. I just wonder where Dan Harmon was, because I would just try to look him up and see what he's doing now, and nothing comes up. So
Well,
I guess he's doing nothing.
Oh, I would think he probably has his several irons in the fire. I mean, that was always his standard operating procedure.
Well, the thing of it is, too, that's so aggravating to me is that they recently gave him legal custody of his 3 great-grandchildren. Now, why would they give a 72-year-old man who's been convicted of racketeering and drug dealing and everything else under the sun custody of his minor grandchildren?
Now, when you say they, are you talking about an administrative law judge?
Talking about a judge here in Saline County.
Oh, just a judge in Saline County.
It's a legal and binding document giving him temporary custody of the 3 children.
Now, is he married now?
No.
Do we know the name of said judge in Saline County who would have given him?
I don't. You know, the name.
Okay.
I've got a copy of the document, but the name of the judge does not appear on it. I'm assuming whoever the juvenile judge is.
Isn't that convenient?
Arnold. I'm not certain of that, but you know, there's no way on this earth that I would ever give custody of children to Dan Harmon.
Or anybody 72, for goodness sake.
He doesn't even have a legal address. He was using his sister's address and at one time staying in a camper in her driveway.
That's a white trash mess right there.
Yeah, that's one word for it. But here's the thing.
Okay.
Dan Harmon, I am absolutely convinced, is one of the killers of my son.
I believe you.
He's receiving protection from high places.
Mm-hmm.
He is, you know, I think part of that protection is local. You know, and I think it's in high places. And, you know, those parties that were going on out at the lake house didn't just include Rivendell officials. It included local elected officials. And I've got a paper with the names of some of them on there. But, you know, somebody's using those tapes to leverage what they need.
Yeah,
almost 35 years later.
35 years later, absolutely. And, you know, I had never heard of Lib Carlisle until the FBI got involved in the case in 1993. And Phyllis Cornan, who was the FBI agent investigating the case, handed Gene Duff and I a piece of paper with a picture of Lib Carlisle and Al Gore Sr. on it. When Al Gore Sr. here was campaigning for his son when Al was running for president. And she said, "Do you know who this man is?" And I absolutely didn't. I'd never laid eyes on him. And she said, "It's Lib Carlisle." And on that piece of paper, she had a sticky note that had written on it, Lib Carlisle was supposed to have called the governor's office to shut down the investigation on Kevin and Don. That was the first time I'd ever heard of Lib Carlisle. You know, I didn't know that he was such a high-powered person here in Saline County. Knew very little about him, but the research on him shows that he was a very powerful man from the get-go and calling shots behind the scenes on a lot of things. And he talks about how things were done even way back when, how they decided who was going to be what. Well, I think they're still deciding who's going to be what in this county, you know, during elections. You know, things haven't changed much in Saline County over all the years, and people think, you know, the government thinks that they cleaned up Saline County when they arrested Dan Harmon. You know, that whole network and machine of people are still in power, still calling the shots, still playing the games that they've always played. And, you know, it's almost to the point where you can't win. You just can't win against them. But,
well, apparently not. You've been digging all these years, and you have it all right there in front of everybody.
You know, the information is there, and I think we have enough evidence against Charlene Wilson and Dan Harmon to, you know, arrest. And that's the opinion of me and several other homicide detectives from other areas of the state that have looked at the confession, several other attorneys that have looked at the confession. They don't understand why somebody hasn't done anything. And, of course, that reason, you know, we know the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we just keep on keeping on. And that's
just an honor to talk to you. It really is an honor to talk to you.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to hang up and listen, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. God bless you, Kathy. I appreciate that. Yeah, one of the things that you were saying at the top of the hour news was there were a lot of things that you wanted to get to that we haven't gotten to yet. But by the grace of God, we're catching a lot of people now that just got out of work that wouldn't have had a chance to listen earlier anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
Then of course, the things that I haven't gotten to are my problem here. That had a little sugar issue going on a while ago that I had to take care of. But the information is there. A lot of people would have you believe this case is not solvable. This case is solvable. They like to make everybody think it's so complicated and convoluted that nobody will ever be able to do anything, but that's not true. If somebody would step up and do their job, they could make a case against Dan Harmon and Charlene Wilson if they would.
At least.
And that's why my focus has been on them. I think there were a number of people involved. I don't think they're the only ones, but they're my only hope and chance at this point. And I'll take what I can get. But I want Charlene Wilson brought in and questioned, and I want Dan Harmon brought in and questioned. If my name was all over a murder investigation like these, I'd have been hauled down there and been under the jail by now.
Yeah.
So I just want them treated like any other murder suspect would be treated.
I would say, and again, a lot of this, the linchpin here, I think, at this point, is the complaint for freedom of information that was filed in the U.S. District Court a couple of days ago by you through your counsel, R. David Lewis, against the CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, Justice Department, Homeland Security, DEA, FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office, U.S. State Department, and Arkansas State Police, Bryant Police Department, and Saline County Sheriff's Office. Now, when I say that's a linchpin, here's what I believe. First of all, I think R. David Lewis makes the point in this complaint that none of these agencies, either federal or state, anymore have any legitimate legal reason to redact any of the information that you've been trying to get for all these years.
Absolutely.
So, if the courts agree and they order all these federal agencies and the Arkansas State Police, Bryant Police Department, and Saline County Sheriff's Office to cough up, especially folks like the DEA, the FBI, the CIA, to cough up all this stuff they've been withholding all these years, then I think we'll have a much better idea of who, besides Dan Harmon and Charlene Wilson, should be brought in for questioning and who are still around. And I think that will be something. Well, hold that thought. Check 6 is every 10 minutes. As the Doc Washburn Show continues, you got it. News Radio 102.9 KARN.
Brought to you by the American Red Cross. Your one blood donation can help save the lives of up to 3 people.
About what matters most in Arkansas on News Radio 102.9 KARN.
I was thinking about what the voice guy just said. Doc Washburn talks about what matters most in Arkansas. The biggest mystery, I think, in the history of the natural state is the boys on the tracks and Mina and what really happened. And Linda Ives is our guest today, and it's my honor to have her on. And we talked about a lot of things earlier in the show. We played audio that I would be willing to bet my bottom dollar, if I was a betting man, that if political kingpin of Saline County, Lib Carlisle, had any idea, he would not have agreed to allow his talk at the Saline County Historical Society, Historical History and Heritage Society, to be videotaped a month ago, if he had any idea some of the things he said were going to wind up on the radio. But my friend Linda Ives wants the truth to come out, and if it had been one of my children, I would be fighting tooth and nail 29 years later, too. Linda, one of the things that I know you wanted to talk about that we haven't gotten to yet is the connection between disgraced former prosecuting attorney of Saline County, imprisoned for RICO and drugs, was that it?
Yeah.
Dan
racketeering.
Racketeering and drugs. Dan Harmon, his connection to William Jefferson Clinton.
Well, there's all kind of documents that list them, and I have a document that talks about Bill being at the lake house, and I'm sure if he was at the lake house and they were doing dope, as it says, then he was videoed, and that's certainly one connection to him.
And that would have been probably early in his second term after he won back the governorship from Mr. White.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of documents that link them together, going back years and years. That they have sent me, which, of course, they immediately want to discount anything any kind of prisoner or anybody with a record says. But those are the people that know about Dan Harmon. You can't walk down the street and, find somebody that just walked out of church and knows all the dirt on Dan Harmon, although it's gotten to that point where you probably can nowadays. But certainly the people that have given information on him that they've discredited are the people who would know.
And for people who are wondering, okay, wait a minute, what are you talking about, the lake house? It is widely believed, and there are many documents out there, that there was quite a scandal in the early to mid-'80s revolving around the Saline County Memorial Hospital misappropriation of funds, attempt to lobby Rivendell to come into Saline County, and parties at a house on the lake involving prostitutes and drugs and videotapes. That's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And, I don't know. Dan Harmon is the go-to guy in Saline County. It's been that way since way back when, just like when Lib Carlisle discussed. Dan Harmon is who they appointed a special prosecutor of anything that came up that needed to be cleaned up. If there was a scandal anywhere, then they would appoint Dan Harmon as special prosecutor, and they being Judge John Coe. And one of the things that I, feel compelled to point out was on that audio tape that you played of Lib's speech. He gives a shout out to Charlie Cole Chafin as one of our legislators, and that's Judge Cole's sister.
And Judge Cole is all over the Boys in the Tracks book. Hold that thought. More coming up with Linda Ives on the Doc Washburn Show.
And enjoy some great deals on delicious meals as you explore our...
Was all through. Is he still around, by the way?
Yes, he's in retirement, but he does hear special cases, just like with Jay Campbell. When Jay Campbell was charged with racketeering down in Lonoke County, he came out of retirement to hear that case down there, just coincidentally.
So I would think that Judge Cole, being all over this Boys in the Tracks book, if there was a case involving Jay Campbell, by all rights should have recused himself, but I'm not sure if he's familiar with that word.
Yeah, I mean, they have their go-to guys that go behind and clean up whatever mess needs to be cleaned up. The same names come up in every case, the same names in the Saline Memorial Hospital scandal and grand jury, the same ones in our grand jury. And I want to read this little statement that is from a state police document.
Yeah.
Of course, nothing was ever done about it, but it says, Black told him, and Black is E.F. Black, who was the administrator of the hospital. Black told him that he had gotten into trouble financially, but he was supposed to get that in quotes and underlined on this state police document, under the table payment from Rivendell, and two others, Greg Brown and Lib Carlisle, were also to receive payments. And, they know what's going on. State police knows what's going on in this county and the officials that are doing and what they're doing. And, they just continue to let it just run amok here. It doesn't matter what they do. They're not going to do a thing about it.
Now, for folks who haven't been in Saline County all their lives, maybe you can tell them who Greg Brown and E.F. Black are.
E.F. Black was the administrator of Saline Memorial Hospital back in the early 80s that ended up being charged with a whole lot of crimes. He didn't serve much time. They made him pay physically for it, though, I can tell you that. They pretty much tried to kill him, I think. Was there allegations somebody dragged him behind a truck? Yes, I have.
Oh, my
I have
goodness.
been told that. But at any rate, there were several people that were indicted with some charges. They never, ever tried to find who got the cocaine and where. Well, they know who got it. They had one employee that they were paying whose sole job was to buy the cocaine that was drawing a check from Saline Memorial Hospital, according to the documents, the state police documents.
Yeah.
That was their job. And nobody ever tried to find out anything. One of the grand jurors, I have a statement from her, and she was very unsatisfied with, the fact that they were promised that they would see the tapes and see who all was involved and which officials. And there were a lot of elected officials, and they never
involved in the drug and prostitutes party,
yes.
tied up with the Saline Memorial Hospital scandal.
Yes.
Okay, got about 30 seconds. Who is Greg Brown?
Greg Brown is just, I don't know what his official title was. It's one of the old families here, the Browns, own Brown's Kitchen. Some of them do. And Calvin Brown, I can't remember what Greg Brown's official position was at that time.
But the document said he was supposed to get some money,
he was supposed to get some money under the table also.
Yeah, okay.
So.
All right. Some amazing, startling assertions made by Saline County political kingpin Lib Carlisle on video, and we got the audio coming up for you next on the Doc Washburn Show.
CBS News Update. The federal government has decided that blood banks around the country should now test for the Zika virus.
All right, I would not do this ordinarily, but it's a very unusual day. Before we get to the audio of Saline County kingpin Lib Carlisle, we do have a caller, Margot from Little Rock, who has a question for our guest, Linda Ives. Margot, you're on the Doc Washburn Show. What's your question?
Hi, Doc. I was calling. I wanted to ask Linda. I didn't get to read very much of the book when I got it from the library, but I am going to go back and get it and finish it. But in the first chapter, it talks about there's a state trooper that comes up when the EMT was there. And I'm sorry I'm going so far back. He worked with my father years and years ago at Safeway, and I knew him from there. He always took our groceries out. But either the case, I wanted to know what happened. That state trooper, and I can't remember what his name was, knew that there was something wrong.
Well, there are a number of things wrong. Number one, that the boys were lying in identical positions, side by side, soldier style, with the gun in between them. The blood was dark and tar-like. They'd been covered with a tarp. The deputies there wouldn't take the train crew's word for anything. They kept calling it the alleged gun, the alleged tarp, which angered them, and they finally took them back and showed it to him, shined their light on it, said, there's your alleged tarp and there's your alleged gun. Now quit calling them alleged. But the train crew was as irritated the way the deputies were handling it, number one.
And the trooper's name was Wayne Lanehart. Go right ahead.
Daryl Wayne Lanehart was the trooper's name. And, he has testified and written an affidavit to the effect that, things didn't look right to him, and if he'd been handling it, he would have done differently. But, that's kind of, I guess, one of their unwritten, unspoken, whatever things that don't interfere with other departments' cases.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was some lying going on. He wrote a report, which they later claimed they didn't have, that he never wrote a report. When I FOI'd it and tried to get it through a court order, and finally they produced a report that he wrote, and he actually did a diagram, but he didn't have a whole lot to do with the way things were worked at the scene immediately, because it was not his jurisdiction.
Okay, I got you. Okay, well, I have the utmost respect for you, and I hope that in this lifetime you get, your peace.
Well,
I really do.
I appreciate that, Margot,
and John's family also.
Well, amen to that too.
Right.
You just keep trying until you can't do anything else, and so
yes, ma'am.
Where we are 30 years later.
Okay, well, thank you for your time,
All right,
sweetheart.
God bless
you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, I want to go back, and again, this was a talk that was given by Lib Carlisle, who many people believe to be a political kingpin in Saline County, and this was given about a month ago to the Saline County Heritage and History Society, and fortunately for us, for posterity, Shelley Poole, MySaline.com, had the presence of mind to videotape this thing. I guess it occurred to her, there might be something here with, Saline County History and Heritage Society. This is historical. Nothing else on YouTube with Lib Carlisle. Let's see what he has to say here. And, well, I'll tell you. One of the things was him talking about Bill and Hillary. And he was tight with Bill. And he and Bill had come to the conclusion that it's going to be tough for Bill to run for president because Arkansas was such a small state, wasn't very powerful, only had 6 votes in the Congress, 2 senators and 4 representatives. So they're going to have to do something to get the attention and try to put together a block of southern states. So they asked representatives of 13 other southern states to come to the governor's mansion, and they fed them sardines, bologna, and cheese to try to talk about being a political bloc in Washington. And here's what Lib Carlisle said about it.
But anyway, Hillary come home. He come in and he spoke to us. I'll never forget this. Press here. Leave this out.
She come in, she spoke to us. I'll never forget. Is the press here? Leave this out. Well, Lib, we're putting it in, brother.
We walked in and Hillary wanted to see Bill and I.
We walked in and Hillary wanted to see Bill and I.
She said, "What are y'all doing?"
She said, "What are y'all doing?"
We're having a get-together with these 13 gentlemen that are from another state.
We're having a get-together with these 13 gentlemen that are from other states.
Well, why are you doing it? Because we're going to be elected president one of these days, and we need him on our side.
Well, why are you doing it? Because we're going to be elected president one of these days, and we need them on our side. We're going to be elected president. So I guess that meant Bill Clinton and Lib Carlisle, apparently. And wait until I play for you what Lib Carlisle, Saline County political kingpin, said Hillary Rodham Clinton's response was to that. That's coming up straight ahead of the Doc Washburn Show. Traffic and weather together in the 6s every 10 minutes. You got it. News Radio 1029 KRN.
Brought to you by
The Core. Everything good for your mind, body, and soul. The Core.
Maybe you'd work out a little more if it were
on News Radio 1029 KARN.
Okay, so before the break, we were playing audio from a video that I got off of YouTube from Saline County political kingpin Lib Carlisle, who gave a talk about a month ago at the Saline County History and Heritage Society. Again, I can't thank Shelley Poole enough, MySaline.com, for having the presence of mind to videotape this thing and put it on YouTube. Shelley, we couldn't do this without you. We appreciate you. Thank you. So anyway, Lib has what I would consider to be a bit of a far-fetched story. And it didn't seem that far-fetched until we get to Hillary Rodham's response when she walks into the governor's mansion and Bill Clinton and Lib Carlisle, I want to say whining and dining political folks from 13 other southern states to try to lay the foundation for Bill to run for president. But the story doesn't really involve whining and dining. By Lib Carlisle's account, they're feeding these guys that they brought all the way to Little Rock sardines, bologna, and cheese. And that's going to help Bill lay the foundation run for president. And so Hillary has asked him, what are y'all doing? We're having a get-together with these 13 gentlemen. They're from other states. Why are you doing it? Because we're going to be elected president we're going to be elected president one of these days, and we need them on our side. Now, by we, he's not talking Bill and Hillary. He's talking about Bill and him. Lib Carlisle is saying, we're going to be elected president one of these days, and we need them on our side. And then, with everything you know about Hillary Clinton, and she's all about me, you know as well as you're hearing my voice that she does not care about her fellow man. It's all about me, the power and the money and the power. She stayed with him through all the humiliation because no way she's ever going to get elected president unless she stayed with him, made sure he got elected, and didn't leave him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, you know all that. So when Lib Carlisle and Bill Clinton say, well, we're, feeding these boys sardines and bologna and cheese because one of these days we're going to be elected president and we need them on our side, Lib Carlisle says that this was Hillary Clinton's response.
She said, you boys, y'all know this is our house. This belongs to the people of Arkansas.
She said, you boys don't know this isn't our house. This belongs to the people of Arkansas. In other words, Lib Carlisle, Democrat Party kingpin of Saline County, wants you to believe that Hillary Clinton could not care less about Bill Clinton running for president. She was concerned about the fact that the governor's mansion belonged to the people of Arkansas. And what are y'all boys doing? Electioneering, trying to establish a foundation for Bill to run for president. Why? I never. Lib Carlisle wants you to believe butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. She was only concerned about the people of Arkansas. The heck with Bill running for president. Lib, buddy, seriously? I mean, I'm not the sharpest knife in the firmament or the brightest bulb in the drawer. I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night, brother. Unbelievable. Sound off and talk back. 433-0092. The Doc Washburn.
And 4:30 next to Arby's.
Linda Ives, mother of Kevin and Ives, one of the boys in the tracks, who we know were murdered before their bodies were put on the tracks August 23rd, 1987, 29 years ago this week. Ms. Linda, I don't know where the time went. We've got 3.5 minutes left. What is it that you've been wanting to share with my audience that we haven't gotten to yet?
Well, I just want everybody to know in this county that things haven't changed much in the 30 years that Kevin and Don have been killed. The same people are in power, maybe a few different faces and new names, but, the machine is still there. It's business as usual. Nothing happens without certain people's blessings, just as Lib Carlisle said on the tape.
Yeah, he did.
And, those were his exact words, and they couldn't be truer. Nothing happens unless you have someone's blessing. And my Freedom of Information lawsuit, I hope will tell us who those persons are. That's been one of the things from the beginning. We don't know who the enemy is.
Well, you certainly didn't know at first because at first for several years you trusted Dan Harmon until you found out that you couldn't.
Right. And people tried to tell me about Dan Harmon, but I kept going back to the idea that he helped me when nobody else would because that's the way it appeared. The one thing I've learned is that in Saline County, nothing is what it appears to be.
Right.
Things look nice on the surface, but it's got a dirty underbelly. And a lot of people don't believe that to this day.
Yeah, and when the deputies showed up at the scene of the death and refused to take anybody seriously that a crime could have been committed, they were working for Sheriff Steed, and this is what Lib Carlisle said about Steed recently.
I say he wore it out early because he was one of those that really helped. And he never forgot who put him where he was, and that's good.
And I think Lib admitted more than he realized he admitted there. He never forgot who put him where he was.
That's exactly right.
And Lib already talked about the whole kingpin mentality of Saline County. Look, we're out of time. There's a Facebook page, Justice for Kevin Ives and Don Henry. I would urge you to take a look at it and submit, that you want to be on that. Linda Ives, God bless you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Doc. And also the link to Lib's...
Arkansas's news, weather, and traffic station. News Radio 102.9 KARN FM, Sheridan, Little Rock, a Cumulus station.
I'm Robin Caesar with the latest from News Radio 102.9.
Released. And then also Onyx has climbed an impressive 2,184 slots. Think about if this was around like when I was a kid. We'd have all these boys and girls named Pong.
Kim Commando, Saturday nights from 6 to 9 on News Radio 102.9 KARN.